Jujutsu Kaisen, Worry-Free True Colors. Chapter 1. February 23, 1990. Kitano Village, Shibuya, Tokyo, Japan. The sky is dark. It is a rainy evening. The cold wind blows the leaves and ravages the village. This place is far away from the city. There are about 50 households of villagers. Just today, the quiet village was broken by a child's cry. Village chief. There is a child here, it seems that he was abandoned here. It's really unlucky. Today is the day to worship the gods. Don't let him cry. Shield his mouth for me. Quickly. Okay, hey. Village chief, here is a piece of paper, take a look at what is written on it. Illiterate, show me, Igarashi, AMA, ha, Igarashi AMA, ha. Igarashi? Village chief, that's a noble name. If we raise him and find his parents, we'll be rich. You are really smart for once. Let's do it this way. Hand him over to the Ishii couple. Okay, I'll go now. June 18, 2000, in the only classroom of Kitano Village Kindergarten. The classroom is a warehouse. The children here are generally about 7 or 8 years old. Their parents have to go to work in the fields, so they entrust their children to the only old man who has read books. This is also the only chance for these children to learn cognition in their lives. Today is another boring word recognition. For children of this age, asking them to recognize words is tantamount to harming them. The old man dragged his old body and explained in a soft voice, while the children were playing their own games. Some talked about what delicious food they had last night, and some talked about how big a fish he caught in the river yesterday. There were all kinds of topics, but there was no topic of word recognition. However, there were also very few who did not participate in these topics, or rather, they were listening to the old man's whispers. For example, the thin boy sitting in the corner. His name is Igarashi Amano, with messy and thin black hair, a small straight nose and big brown eyes, which made him look even cuter. Normally, cute boys usually have a group of friends, but he doesn't have any friends. In the eyes of everyone, Igarashi Tianyi is very cold and never takes the initiative to communicate with others. Even at home, he rarely talks to his parents. Although Igarashi Tianyi listened to the teachings of the old man in front of him, his eyes did not look forward. He looked at the sky outside casually, wondering what he was thinking. He is a transmigrator. In his previous life, he had parents who loved him, a 211-degree earned through hard work, and good treatment from an excellent company. Everything was beautiful, but a car accident took away everything from him, family, love, status, money, and even life, but it did not take away his memory. This made him a little uneasy. He didn't understand what kind of world he was in. When he was conscious, he saw the village chief who wanted to use him for money, and his parents who wanted to use him to live in the city. These were not enough to make him panic. What really made him panic was the strange ability in his body and the wailing coming from the village basement. He spent 5 years to identify everyone in the village. As expected, they all had no special abilities. They were all ordinary humans who were a bit bad. They had no special abilities, but he had them. So he was an alien. The current information is that he is now in Shibuya, Japan in 1995. Unfortunately, it is a village. In this era, a village can be said to be a small country. There are no laws or regulations. There are only the whims of the village chief. According to the regulations in the novels he read in college in his previous life, there is an 86% probability of crossing into the imaginary world, which is commonly known as the anime world, and the remaining 14% probability is the creative world, which is a real world. There is no plot and no protagonist there. Of course, maybe you are the protagonist. Then according to his inference, the background of the world has been made public. It is Tokyo, Japan at the end of the year 1000. He has special abilities, but the development of his abilities is not enough for him to know the specific information. According to the following speculation, he has obtained a total of 5 speculations about imaginary worlds. 1 Charlotte. 2 Bungo stray dogs. 3 a certain scientific railgun. 4 Jujutsu Kaisen. 5 Psycho 100. Of course, there may be more, but that is beyond his knowledge. A noisy sound was heard. As usual, the adults in the field came back and they also finished their study. The village was very quiet in the evening, making Igarashi Amano mistakenly think that he was dead again, but he didn't find out. Walking alone on the way home, Igarashi Amano thought about the words that the old man taught him today. Yes, no one answered his question. According to his current nominal parents, children of noble families must be smarter than ordinary people. It must be easy for them to walk a 20-minute distance by themselves at the age of 10. In fact, what they said is true. A 5-year-old can walk a 20-minute distance or a 2-hour distance. However, whether he can walk home is another answer. I'm back. I pushed open the shabby door of my house and followed the disgusting rules. The house was very simple, no, it should be said that it was very shabby. There was not even a wall, only 2 beds in the left and right corners, just a large area. But it's not surprising to think about it, a family consisting of a lazy man and a stupid woman, it's not easy to have enough food. Tianyi is back, come and have dinner. Did you have fun in kindergarten today? A fat woman with a big smile on her face shouted to Igarashi Tianyi. Very happy, I will go wash my hands first, mother. Igarashi Tianyi answered very obediently and walked towards the sink. If you could put away that disgusting smile, I might be happier. The greed under the smile is already undisguised, stupid woman. Igarashi Tianyi's face turned ugly when he lowered his head to wash his face, and he cursed inwardly without caring. At the dinner table, Igarashi Tianyi looked at the muddy ramen in the bowl as expected. I'm going to eat. Following disgusting rules, eating unpalatable food, facing people with ulterior motives, this is his daily life. Tianyi, how is your study today? Have you learned everything? Ishii Izayahi's voice swept towards Igarashi Tianyi with a suffocating breath. Igarashi Tianyi held her breath and drank a mouthful of muddy water as if she was familiar with it, and said, Yes, I have learned everything, mother. The so-called mother is just the stupid woman's own wish, and she wants Igarashi Tianyi, who was born in an aristocratic family, to call her mother, so that she will feel that she is a noble lady in a wealthy family. Chapter 2. Hearing what Igarashi Amano said, as a mother, she was immediately happy. Ha ha ha, you are worthy of being my child. You must work hard and buy a big house in Tokyo when you grow up to honor me and your father. Okay, mother. After dinner, the two returned to their respective beds to rest without much conversation. About 2 hours later, the door opened and Igarashi Amano's father came back. As for why he came back so late, it was certainly not to work. For such a lazy person, only playing cards could make him forget about food and sleep. He didn't say anything. After a simple bite at the stove, he went back to bed to rest. If nothing unexpected happened, the two idiots would make a noise again. Not long after, the inferior bedboard made a protesting sound. Ah, Ichiro! Ah! Igarashi Tianyi was bored and started counting the time. 10. 48. 89. 101. 121. 129. The panting stopped. Igarashi Amano was not surprised by this. However, he seemed to be in good shape today. He actually reached 129 seconds. Haha. The farce-like day ended here, and Igarashi Amano fell asleep with mental fatigue. The next morning, it should be said that it was close to noon. Igarashi Amano, who came back from exercising, looked at the two people on the bed helplessly. It was a miracle to live to this age. Sure enough, once human thinking changes, his survival needs will also be aligned with livestock. Igarashi Amano simply washed up and began to walk towards the kindergarten. Along the way, he looked at the people in the distance working hard to farm, and sighed a little. There are still normal people in this village, not all of them are idiots. Over and over again, Igarashi Amano lived like this day after day. Although the quality was a little unsatisfactory, it was fortunate that it was safe at present. Of course, this was the previous view. The previous assembly line was broken today. July 2, 2000. As usual, Igarashi Amano walked home for 20 minutes, did disgusting rules, and said disgusting words. I'm going to start eating. Igarashi Tianyi said with his hands clasped together. At this moment, father came back. Unlike usual, he looked very depressed. Although he would be depressed when he lost all his money before, he didn't know when it started. His condition looked worse day by day, as if his energy was sucked away. I'm back. Ishii Ichiro said in a weak voice. Come and eat. Igarashi Tianyi didn't look at him much, just ate his muddy ramen, but when he looked up and spoke, he was stunned. I finished eating. Strange, monster, Igarashi. Tianyi was stunned for a moment when he looked at the one-eyed lizard on his father's shoulder, and he spoke out uncontrollably. Snap! The sound of chopsticks falling sounded, instantly pulling Igarashi Tianyi back from shock. He suddenly looked at his parents and found that they were looking at him with fierce eyes. Bad luck! Bang! Igarashi Tianyi didn't think too much, he just overturned the table and ran out the door. He used all his strength to run into the jungle. The couple who reacted no longer concealed their faces and ran outside and started shouting. Come quickly, this noble kid is an unlucky person, come quickly. The man's rough voice sounded particularly harsh in the quiet evening. All the men in every household ran out and ran towards Igarashi Tianyi. Catch him, quickly. We can't let him get away, quickly. Igarashi Amano's face darkened as he watched more and more people gather behind him. Damn it, years of planning have been ruined. He cursed his own stupidity, and at the same time picked up the guillotine beside him, ready for the final life and death struggle. Now that some villagers have ridden motorcycles, he can't outrun the gas-guzzling machines no matter how fast he runs. As he stopped, the crowd quickly surrounded him. Run, bastard, why don't you run anymore? I didn't expect you to be so good at pretending. I didn't even notice it for so long. His father pointed at him and cursed. Go! As a voice fell in the crowd, everyone rushed forward. Swish! 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 Ah, my hand, ah ah ah! Igarashi Tianyi cut off a man's hand and looked at the motorcycle beside him. As long as he could grab the motorcycle, he could run away. His eyes became firm and he held the knife in his hand tighter. Damn kid, come at me together. Even if he has a knife, I wonder how he can dodge it. Igarashi Amano relied on the judo he learned in his previous life and the weapons in his hands to defeat the crowd one by one. After less than 10 minutes, everyone including Igarashi Amano was injured, but in the end, he gained a short victory at the cost of a broken arm. He dragged his aching body towards the motorcycle. This kind of small motorcycle could be driven even by his short legs. He started the motorcycle happily and prepared to leave. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The huge engine sound was just like his heart. He began to look forward to the outside world. He began to plan his plans after getting out. He began to think about the name unknown person. It was very unfamiliar. It seemed that it was not the imaginary world I mentioned. Things were getting troublesome. Strange, why am I getting sleepier and sleepier, what's going on? Igarashi. Tianyi felt more and more tired while riding, his eyelids closed uncontrollably, he began to bite his tongue to control his sleepiness and started to think about what went wrong. Could it be that bowl of noodles? No. It's impossible, they couldn't have known that there was something wrong with them before, so what was it? Bang! The motorcycle crashed into a tree uncontrollably. Igarashi Tianyi felt his body flying up. In the last moment before he closed his eyes, he saw a needle inserted into his broken arm. Is that what happened? When he opened his eyes again, he saw an unfamiliar environment. It was extremely quiet with only a few candles flickering. He raised his hand to rub his head, but he felt pain in his arm and the sound of chains. He endured the pain and slowly climbed up. He felt a little desperate when he saw the chains all over his body. His neck, hands, and feet were all shackled. He began to hate himself, hated his stupidity, hated his carelessness, hated his weakness. If he hadn't said it out loud, if he had noticed the tranquilizer, if he had been stronger, damn it, all his years of calculations were ruined in an instant, damn it. You also have magical powers, right? At this moment, a sudden voice appeared behind me. Chapter 3. Who? Igarashi Yamaha turned his head suddenly and looked behind him. The harsh sound of chains rang out, and the candle light illuminated the face of the person in front of him. Igarashi Yamaha saw the person in front of him clearly, and even his pupils shrank suddenly despite his strong psychological quality. The person in front of him was extremely thin, no, it was not thin anymore, his chest was completely sunken, and only the bones could be seen, he was really skin and bones. His hair had grown to the ground, and so did his nails, like a beast. It was hard to imagine that this was a human, a living human. No. What did he just say? Curse power. Could it be? What do you mean by cursed power? Igarashi. Tianyi looked at the person in front of him warily and asked a question that he had been thinking about for 5 years. Igarashi Tianyi controlled the muscles of his body and was ready to attack at any time. Even if the person in front of him wanted to eat him, he would not be surprised at all. It has been 3 years since he first heard the screams in the basement. 3 years is enough to turn a person into a beast, and this world is even more so. Are you still a novice? It seems that you don't know why you were caught. Welcome to hell. My name is Aoki Agawa, and it's my 8th year in hell. Aoki Agawa spoke absurd words in a hoarse voice. Igarashi Amano frowned. 8 years. After staying in this dark space for 8 years and not committing suicide, things became troublesome. My name is Igarashi Amano, I'm 10 years old, I know why I was caught, because I am an alien to them, and what I want to know is, what exactly is an alien, and what is the meaning of cursed power? Please help me answer. Oh? Only 10 years old? I really can't tell. Igarashi, a noble surname. A wave of emotion rose in Aoki Ishuan's dull eyes. What an incredible child. Igarashi Tianyi didn't say anything, waiting for Aoki Ishuan's next words. Ah, cursed power, let's talk about it. It's been a long time since I talked to humans. Yes, yes. Igarashi Tianyi frowned even more tightly. What do you mean? It's been a long time since I talked to humans, that is, the negative matter of this world can. Aoki Ishuan sat down on the ground and said somewhat dejectedly, let's talk about it. Cursed power, it's shit. It's the power from human negative emotions. The reason why we are called aliens is that we have cursed power and can become sorcerers, but those monkeys can't. Igarashi Amano has confirmed that this is the virtual world Jujutsu Kaisen. Although he has not thoroughly understood this world, he has seen simple plots. What he just saw was the curse spirit, but why has he only seen that one curse spirit in all these years? There can't be so few curse spirits in such a village. I have a question, Mr. Aoki, can you tell me? Igarashi Tianyi asked his question. Ah, it's been a while since anyone called my name. I miss it so much. Tell me something, smart kid. There should be a lot of cursed spirits in this village, but why have I only seen one in all these years? King Miyachuan was stunned. This kid didn't even know about cursed power just now, how come he suddenly knew about cursed spirits? But he just thought about it and didn't ask. Because I exorcised them all. What? Igarashi Tianyi looked at Aoki Ishuan with some doubt. It was not his fault that he looked down on others. The prerequisite for exorcising the cursed spirit was to defeat him. But how could he possibly do it in his current state? Besides, if he had that kind of strength, he would have run away long ago. Aoki Ishuan saw Igarashi Tianyi's doubt and explained with a smile, it's my technique evil attraction that can attract cursed spirits of a certain level. Don't look at me like this. I'm actually very strong. Some weaker ones won't be my opponents. But if you have such strength, why are you still here? Why don't you run? That's a long story, let's talk about it later. Give me your arm, I'll take care of it for you, don't be afraid of what I will do to you, although I look like I'm about to die, but I'm still very strong. Aoki Ishuan didn't explain much, but looked at Igarashi Amaha's arm. Igarashi Amaha didn't refuse, raised his arm and walked towards Aoki Ishuan, because the other party was telling the truth. If it was true as he said, then it would be useless even if he resisted. If it was false, then he didn't have to be afraid of him, he still had some physical strength now. Click! A crisp sound rang out, Igarashi Amaha shook his arm, although it was a little painful, but it would not get worse. Many thanks. We may die in the same place again, there is no need to be so polite. After a brief acquaintance and the treatment of the arm, the two of them became familiar with each other and began to chat. Clang! At this moment, the sound of the iron door rang, and they saw who was coming. It was the village chief. The village chief walked to Igarashi Amano with a torch and said in a cold tone, I originally wanted to find your parents to make some money, but I didn't expect it to be a monster, you bastard, it's all because of you monsters that my son died. After the village chief finished speaking, he kicked Igarashi Amano in the face. He just wanted to dodge, but he forgot that his feet were handcuffed with chains, and he took the kick alive. Puff! Igarashi Amano, who was kicked to the ground, felt a salty taste in his mouth, and stared at the village chief. You still dare to glare at me? He kicked Igarashi Amano in the face again. He seemed dissatisfied when he saw the blood flowing from the corner of Igarashi Amano's mouth. He then pulled out his belt and started to whip him fiercely. The face, neck, chest, arms, thighs, all were his targets. The belt swung down again and again with the sound of breaking wind. Snap! 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 I don't know how long it had been. The village chief looked at Igarashi Amano, who was lying on the ground covered in blood and had fainted, and spat, muttering something like, "You're really not resistant to beatings. You, keep an eye on him and don't let him die, or you'll be the one getting beaten." The village chief raised his belt and said to Aoki Yachuan. "Okay." The village chief nodded with satisfaction and turned to walk outside. "Get up, that stupid monkey is gone," Aoki Yachuan said to Igarashi Amano, who was lying motionless on the ground. Igarashi Amano moved and slowly sat up. He did not feel resentment or curse, but calmly began to check the wounds on his body. "You don't seem angry, are you an M?" Aoki Yachuan asked curiously. "If anger could solve problems, I would be lying on the bed in a 5-star hotel watching my favorite comedy." Igarashi Tianyi said in a calm tone. "Haha, you are really interesting." Same here. Chapter 4 July 20, 2000, Kitano Village. More than half a month has passed since Igarashi Amano was imprisoned. Although he was occasionally beaten during this period, fortunately, there is no plan to kill him yet. "What's your technique, kid?" "Have no idea." "Don't know? Don't you have the technique?" Aoki Yachuan said with disbelief. Igarashi Amaha didn't answer. He could feel that he had the technique, but it was very weak and he didn't know how to describe it. At this moment, a strange cry came. Igarashi Amaha hurriedly got up and looked at the wall behind him vigilantly. A cursed spirit with a blue-black body crawled out. Why do I say crawl? Because his 2 arms and lower body were broken, and light blue blood was still flowing. "Don't be nervous, it's okay, he has no fighting power anymore," Aoki Yachuan reminded Igarashi Amano as he looked at Igarashi Amano, who was ready to fight at any time. Igarashi Amano frowned. "Did you attract him?" Aoki Yachuan waved his hands quickly. "You are looking down on me, this is a level 1 cursed spirit, but it looks like it was beaten badly by the sorcerer." "Level 1, Igarashi?" Amaha was a little surprised. Both sorcerers and cursed spirits can be divided into different levels according to their strength. From weak to strong, there are level 4, level 3, level 2, quasi-level 2, level 1, quasi-level 1, and special level. A level 4 sorcerer can beat a level 4 cursed spirit, a level 3 sorcerer can beat a level 3 cursed spirit, and so on. Level 4 cursed spirits can be said to be small fry, and can be repelled with a wooden bat. Level 3 cursed spirits can be dealt with a pistol. Level 2 cursed spirits can only be dealt with a shotgun. Level 1 cursed spirits will not be easy to deal with even if tanks are deployed. As for special level cursed spirits, cluster bombs must be used for carpet attacks. With the current appearance of the 2 people, I'm afraid that a level 2 cursed spirit can slaughter them all, and the current cursed spirit is actually level 1. For some reason, Igarashi Amaha always has a special feeling in his heart when looking at the cursed spirit in front of him, as if it is urging him, pushing him to eat him. Let's not talk about what will happen if he eats him, the key is that he can't eat him at all. An absurd idea emerged in his mind, and Igarashi Tianyi looked at Aoki Yachuan and expressed his thoughts. "Aoki, can I kill him?" Of course you can, but even if he is half dead, you will have to waste some effort to kill him. Let him fend for himself, isn't it? He is threatening us anyway. Although Aoki Yachuan was puzzled, he did not refuse Igarashi Tenha. He did not need to refuse. People asked him, which showed respect for him. He was not stupid enough to refuse. "I want to try out the idea in my mind." Igarashi Amaha said as he walked towards the cursed spirit. After that, he stood up and walked over half of the cursed spirit's body, took a deep breath, and then raised his fist. Boom! A ball of weak blue flame ignited in Igarashi Amaha's fist. This was all his cursed power. Just as it looked, it was pitifully small. Ah! The cursed spirit looked at the flame of cursed power burning on the boy's fist in front of him, and his scary face became terrified, as if he remembered something. Puff! Puff! Igarashi Amaha's fist hit hard again and again. At this moment, he seemed like a machine without feeling, just a machine that kept hitting his fist. Aoki Yachuan, who was standing by, was terrified. I don't know how long it took, as Igarashi Yamaha hit his fist again, he unconsciously uttered a word eat. Puff. The cursed spirit stopped twitching and turned into a ball of black mist and disappeared. But from Igarashi Yamaha's perspective, it was not like this. In his eyes, the disappeared cursed spirit suddenly turned into a piece of energy emitting fluorescent light. Before he could react, the ball of fluorescent light drilled into his body. At this moment, he also fell into a coma due to extreme fatigue and the invasion of fluorescent light. He lost consciousness, and when Igarashi Tianyi opened his eyes again, he found himself in an unknown environment. It was pitch black, and he couldn't see his hand in front of him. Just when he didn't know what to do, a sound rang out, as if, is it the sound of a chess piece falling? He is very sensitive to this sound. In his previous life, he was a well-known chess master. He was involved in Go, Shogi, Hwaja chess, and international chess. But this sound, seems to be Hwaja chess? Wow! The sound of waves sounded, and the surrounding space changed dramatically. Everything in the dark disappeared, replaced by a blue sea, and a pavilion under his feet. Igarashi Tianyi carefully explored everything around him, but he was surrounded by the sea and there was no one. He cast his eyes on the chessboard in the center of the pavilion, but the scene in front of him made him unforgettable in his life. This, what on earth is this? Wow! The sound of waves pulled Igarashi Amano back from his daze. He came to his senses and looked at the two chess pieces on the chessboard. That's right, there were only two chess pieces on the chessboard, one of which was the black general. This was nothing, but what really shocked him was the chess piece opposite the general. There was no writing on that chess piece, only a simple pattern. That pattern was none other than the level 1 curse spirit that Igarashi Amano had tried so hard to kill. Igarashi Amano thought back to the last second when he fainted. He was not wrong. He said it himself. He did say a word. With his absurd guess, he slowly picked up the general and slowly lifted it above the cursed chess. An ethereal sound came out of his mouth. Eat. Day. The sound of the chess piece falling rang out, and the cursed chess was forcibly squeezed into the body of the general at the moment it was eaten. Igarashi Amano frowned as he looked at the scene in front of him. If my guess is correct, then, it should be coming. Boom. 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 A clear heartbeat sound came, and the next second, Igarashi Amano's body suddenly began to heat up. He felt as if his body was about to explode, but instead of panicking, he burst into laughter. Plop! He fell to his knees, looked up at the sky with his arms open, and laughed crazily. Ha ha ha, I didn't guess wrong, this is my birth method, ha 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 ha. Feeling the growing power in his body, he started crying again while laughing. He looked extremely crazy at this moment. He was still laughing wildly, but his snot and tears kept flowing out. He didn't care even if they flowed into his mouth. He kept murmuring obsessively in his mouth, ah, what should I do, what should I do, I am starting to like this world, ha 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 ha. At this moment, the whole ocean was echoing with his laughter, and at this moment, he didn't know that the person who would be able to change his life was about to appear. Chapter 5 August 7, 2000, Kitano Village. Aoki Ishuan looked at the sturdy Igarashi Amano with interest and said, your skills are really amazing. It's a pity that you have to be trapped by monkeys with a loser like me. What a pity. Stop teasing me, get me some more curse spirits so I can get you out sooner. Igarashi Tianyi, whose skin was white and unharmed, squinted and said. Please, this is not Tokyo, where there are so many cursed spirits for you to eat, please understand me. Aoki Yachuan complained a few words, pulled the chain with his hand and continued, this chain makes my head thick, I don't know what those monkeys bought it for. Who knows, Igarashi? Tianyi was interrupted by the sound of a chain before he could finish his words. Here we go again, Aoki. Ishuan looked at Igarashi Amano with a pale face and smiled. Today. 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 No. It's the sound of high heels. Igarashi Amano's face turned ugly as he listened to the sound getting closer and closer. He was not afraid of the monkey's beating. For such a wound, he only needed to eat a level 4 curse spirit to recover. What he was afraid of was, the sudden unknown. Two figures emerged under the light of the torches. They were the village chief and a pretty woman. Moreover, this woman's identity was not ordinary. The village chief, who used to look down on others, now served her like a dog. Who was she? The village chief held a torch in one hand and pointed at Igarashi Amano with the other hand and introduced him nervously, Ms. Sato, that's him. This guy is the monster I caught recently. Look at his face and skin. They are both amazing. Moreover, this guy is extremely weird. I beat him up all over one day, but he was back to normal the next day. That, are you satisfied? Oh. The woman raised her eyebrows with interest after hearing the latter part of the sentence. Are you telling the truth? The village chief immediately became anxious after hearing this. Oh, look at what you said, I dare not lie to anyone but you, the village chief was so anxious that he was spinning around on the ground. Suddenly, he slapped his head hard, quickly pulled out the belt and handed it to the woman. If you don't believe me, try hitting him a few times, and he will definitely feel better the next day. The woman looked at the belt beside her with disgust. Get away, there's no need to try. Go out and ask Hung Shan to get the money, and then ask him to bring my tools. Get out of here. Oh, yes, I'll leave right away, you go ahead and do your work. After the village chief finished speaking, he began to smile happily and dragged his bloated body to run to the back. The woman and Igarashi Amano looked at each other, and no one spoke. After a moment, the woman looked at Igarashi Amano and smiled. You are very good, what's your name? Igarashi Amaha. When the woman heard the surname Igarashi, her expression was dazed for a moment, and then she burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, this piece of trash, not bad, actually found a good thing like you, I'm getting more and more excited. And it was the woman's daze at this moment that caught Igarashi Amaha's attention. There were hurried footsteps, and a man in black ran over with a golden chair on his back and a toolbox in his hand. Bang! The man in black put the golden chair on the open space beside him, making a loud noise, but the man in black walked to the woman without breathing and said respectfully, Miss, the things are here. And this scene set off a wave in Igarashi Amaha's heart. The chair was made of pure gold, and it was solid, at least 500 kilograms, and the man lifted it up and ran easily. This man, very strong. Lock him to the blood turtle for me. Blood turtle, the name of that golden chair, doesn't sound very good. Yes. Igarashi Amano was locked on it without any resistance. His whole body was controlled, even his fingers were no exception. Just when Igarashi Amano thought that this was just an ordinary chair made of gold, he felt powerless and his cursed power was suppressed. At this time, a woman's voice sounded. How is it, the cursed power is suppressed? Haha, this was made by someone I asked at a high price, it is a masterpiece of the technique soul burial. Young lady. The man in black opened the toolbox, and a bunch of blood-stained torture instruments appeared before his eyes. The woman named Sato put on a pair of red leather gloves, elegantly took out a whip from the box, and began to talk to herself. Level 3 cursed tool Demon Hope, it doesn't have any amazing abilities. If it were someone else, they might not even look at it, but for me it is my treasure. Do you know its ability? As long as you inject cursed power, you can double the pain. How about it? Not bad, hee. Snap. Igarashi Amanoha trembled all over, and a layer of cold sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. The woman who suddenly whipped out a whip looked at the trembling Igarashi Amanoha and laughed. How is it, does it hurt? Ha ha ha, it reduces your damage and increases your pain. This is the Ghost Hope, a cursed tool that will make even ghosts and gods despair when hit. Don't worry, it will just hurt a little, and there won't be any harm. You're such a handsome little brother, I can't bear to kill you so soon, ha 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 ha. Snap. 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 The neck, chest, and abdomen were all hit. Ah! Igarashi Amano's shrill screams resounded throughout the basement. Aoki Akawa looked at Igarashi Amano, who was suffering from inhuman torture, with a dazed expression. It was so miserable. The screams made his fingers tremble unconsciously. Whoosh! The sound of breaking wind was heard. Aoki Akawa felt difficulty breathing for a while as he felt the big hand holding his neck tightly. He glanced hard at the man in black behind him and wanted to speak, but his throat refused to give him a chance. Pretend to be dead, don't distract the young lady, don't do it again. The man in black said coldly and disappeared on the spot. Aoki Yachuan sat there, desperately covering his mouth to prevent a heavy gasp from bringing death to himself. Snap. Snap. Ah. Nice look, I like it, Hung Shan, pliers. They. Woman wrapped the whip around Igarashi Tianyi's body, took the pliers from the man in black and spoke again. Chapter 6. Nice look, I like it, Hung Shan, pliers. The woman wrapped the whip around Igarashi Tenai's body, looked at his tightly clenched fist, took the pliers from the man in black and said again, open his hand for me. Yes, young lady. The man in black walked up to Igarashi Tenai and took off a brooch in a proper manner. Whoosh! Puff! A burst of wind came, and the brooch firmly pierced the back of Igarashi Tenai's right hand. Ah! The pain of the flesh being pierced was multiplied by the ghost's vision. Igarashi Tenai let out a painful roar and opened his right hand violently. This effect was exactly what Sato wanted to see. Seeing this, the man in black inserted 5 more needles into his 5 fingers, firmly nailing them. Igarashi Tenai looked at his fingers with a pale face, then looked at the pliers in the woman's hand, and guessed in his heart, it must be that. It really tortures people. Ta-da! The woman walked to his side in high heels, slowly clamped his fingernails with a pair of pliers in her left hand, and then gently stretched out her right hand to caress Igarashi Amano's face lovingly. Now, you will remember me forever. Puff! The woman suddenly pulled with her right hand. Igarashi Amano's body trembled violently, but he did not make any sound, just a dull groan. The woman raised her right hand with a sick expression and shook it in front of Igarashi Amano. It's still dripping blood, why don't you look up? Igarashi Amano raised his head with difficulty. He looked at the pliers that were so close and still dripping blood, and pulled the corner of his mouth with difficulty. Igarashi, Tenai's nails, very beautiful, hee. The woman's originally playful expression froze, and her face turned gloomy. Igarashi, you are all so annoying. The woman seemed to be a little broken, and she no longer pretended to be elegant. She picked up the pliers and began to tear off Igarashi Amano's nails one by one. Under the blessing of Ghost Hope, Igarashi Amano fainted after the third piece, and naturally didn't know what happened next. After an unknown amount of time, he felt as if his face was being kneaded wantonly. He slowly opened his eyes, only to see that the woman had disappeared, and the one who was fiddling with his face was Aoki Ishuan, who kept muttering about how to eat it and how to stuff it in like this. Hey, what are you doing? Aoki Yachuan, who was holding a level 4 cursed spirit in his hand, was stunned at first when he heard the weak voice, and then he became ecstatic. You scared me to death, I thought you were dead. Don't worry, I won't die until that level 1 cursed spirit is completely digested. Yes, even though half a month had passed, the level 1 cursed spirit had not been completely digested. The reason was simple. Igarashi Amano's current body was not strong enough to quickly withstand all the feedback brought by the level 1 curse spirit, and these energies could repair his body and increase his curse power all the time. So, come to that, what do you want to do to my face? Hasn't your sexuality been worn down after all these years? Igarashi Tenai raised his eyes to look at Aoki Ishuan and asked calmly. Aoki Ishuan smiled when he heard this. You kid, I thought you would lose hope of living, but you are still strong. He raised his hand and shook the level 4 curse spirit in his hand and said, Here, I found it for you. I wanted you to eat it to recover. Igarashi Tenai was in a trance when he heard this. Kindness? This is the first time I have felt this since I came to this world. He pulled up the corners of his mouth and smiled with difficulty. Who do you think I am? I will not lose hope in life so easily. Besides, I haven't seen this world properly yet. But you really know how to play with people's minds. You discovered from the very beginning that this woman seemed to have some connection with the Igarashi clan. Aoki. Akawa dragged the chain on his feet, sat on the ground and started chatting. Igarashi Amano looked at Aoki Akawa in surprise, admiring his keen insight. Aoki Akawa noticed Igarashi Amano's gaze, waved his hand and said unhappily, Don't look at me with that kind of eyes, talk about you. Igarashi Amano laughed, but did not deny otherwise. Do you think I would provoke others in that situation? I'm not that stupid. Then he sighed with relief and said, But fortunately, I bet right, she broke the defense, and she didn't torture me with a playful mentality, but ended it hastily, otherwise I would have been in trouble. Don't be too happy. You are still tied up, which means she believes the monkey's words. You can recover from your injuries and come back again. King Mu. Yachuan poured cold water on her mercilessly. I know, but now I can only wait. I estimate that this blood turtle can only imprison a level 2 sorcerer, and I will be fine when I reach level 2. King Mu Yachuan was a little angry when he heard this, and laughed. It's so easy for you to say that. Level 2, how long do you think you can last? A month? Or half a year? The cursed spirits here alone can't make you a level 2 in a short time, what will you do then? I will. Igarashi Yamaha said seriously and firmly. Aoki Ishuan heard this and began to look disappointed. I thought you were a smart man, but it turns out you are also a fool. He said and started to stand up, ready to give up Igarashi Yamaha. Don't forget, that monkey received a lot of money. What? So what? Wait. Could it be that? Aoki Yachuan was walking and suddenly froze in place, turned around abruptly, and his tone became more excited than ever before. That's right, what do you think that monkey will do with the money? Igarashi. Tianyi looked at Aoki Ishuan, who lost his composure and laughed. Aoki Ishuan's eyes gradually became excited. Yes, buy a woman. That's right. After my observations over the past few years, I found that many women in the village were bought through illegal means, and this has become the norm. Every few years, they will get a considerable amount of unknown income, and then they will buy a group of women, and these women are our way to quickly get rid of the current situation. For Kitano village, which is far away from the city, the law has long become vulnerable. The village chief has relied on some illegal means to obtain a sum of money all year round, and then used this money to buy a lot of young women. After buying them, he imprisoned them in his own home. He would enjoy them first, and then sell them to the villagers at a low price. Those who couldn't hold on and chose to commit suicide would have their organs removed and sold at a high price, relying on the money to circulate again. Thus, an evil ecological chain was formed, which is why Igarashi Tianyi must stay here. When he saw these problems, he had already sworn a poisonous oath that he would not be a human being if he didn't kill them. The purchased women will form fear, resentment, and despair, and these emotions will form curses. Chapter 7. Now, looking at the woman named Sato, with her strength, the monkey will definitely get the largest amount of money in history, which means that the number of women purchased will also be the largest in the village, and the cursed spirits will continue to form. At that time, he only needs to eat and eat, and while digesting quickly, his cursed power will continue to increase. The most important point is that the chess pieces will also begin to unlock in this process. The two discussed their future plans. With the help of Aoki Ishuan, he attached the cursed power to his teeth and successfully bit the 4th level cursed spirit to death to form a peace eating. The next day, as expected, Sato didn't come. It was understandable that with her status and position, how could she stay in this tiny place for 2 consecutive days? Moreover, in her opinion, Igarashi Yamaha was probably still on the verge of death. Another good news was that they could clearly hear the roar of vehicles outside in the dungeon. It seemed that the money had been spent. There was no car with this horsepower here. After a day, Igarashi Yamaha's injuries had recovered, and the torn nails had grown back. As for the cursed power, tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound of water drops came, and Igarashi Yamaha opened his eyes and appeared on the chessboard in his heart. The environment was still the same as before, surrounded by the blue sea on all sides. He sat next to the chessboard. The only difference was the chess pieces on the chessboard. Compared with the previous general, there were 3 more chess pieces on the chessboard at this time, which were 3 pawns engraved with vigorous and powerful words. However, they did not place their pieces, but were suspended above the chessboard, as if waiting for something. Igarashi Yamaha raised his eyebrows, picked up a piece and placed it. Day. Buzz. The sea surface was rippled, and suddenly, a lot of information swept into his brain, and he also got some information about his own technique. The technique De Yuanwu unlocks the derived skills of the technique through the capture of the general. The unlocking order is 5 pawns, 2 horses, 2 cannons, 2 chariots, 2 elephants, and the last fortress, 2 soldiers. The abilities of the 5 pawns are similar and different. The similarity is that they will bring moderate amounts of cursed power and strength and resistance to attacks to Igarashi Yamaha. The difference is that their main enhanced abilities are also different. They represent the 5 senses of human beings: vision, hearing, touch, smell, and taste, and their abilities are relatively mediocre. Although mediocre, once all 5 pawns are unlocked, you will obtain the body-style god, the Red Owl. The Red Owl is said to be a shikigami from the netherworld, formed by purple-white flames. Once the contract is signed, it will parasitize the bones of the general and assist him for life, allowing him to gain the ability to control the purple-white flames. This is also the only shikigami in Dao Yuanwu. It can be seen that the 5 pawns are mainly for physical strengthening and melee ability. The ability of the remaining chess pieces is still unknown, and the intelligence has not been answered. I think it will be unlocked gradually. As for the end of the sorcerer and the expansion of the field, it is too far for him now, so let's not talk about it for now. After the interpretation, Igarashi Tianyi slowly opened his eyes, feeling the magic power filling his body, and couldn't hide his excitement in his heart. This technique is very strong. Now Igarashi Tianyi has unlocked 3 pawns. According to his speculation, as long as he can unlock the Red Owl, his combat power will also soar. At that time, he can take King Mu away from this ghost place, and he can also make those monkeys who have obliterated humanity pay the corresponding price. Thinking of this, he wanted to kill the cursed spirit more urgently. He cast his gaze towards Aoki Yachuan who was lying there motionless. Hey, Aoki, how is it? Is there any cursed spirit nearby? Can you lure it over? Please, my little genius, if you want to wait for the birth of the cursed spirit, it will take at least half a month. Don't be anxious. That woman probably won't come in the next few days. Just stay here. You have been here for so long, half a month won't make a difference. Don't talk and save your energy. Aoki. Ashuan lay there and waved his hands weakly. For some reason, Igarashi Amaya felt that Aoki Ashuan was thinner than before. Maybe it was an illusion. He had been imprisoned here for so many years and nothing happened. He must have a way to solve the hunger, but the effect is not so good. But don't worry, Aoki, I will definitely take you out. This day will come soon. Igarashi Amaya thought to himself. Outside, at the home of the village chief of Kitano village. At this time, the village chief was wearing a decent black suit. He looked quite funny. His fat body stretched the suit tightly, and his fat face was a little pale. He walked to the bed, loosened his tie, unbuttoned his clothes, revealing a bloody wound inside, spat a mouthful of thick phlegm on the ground, and cursed in his heart, Sato, this slut, bitch, just looked at her a few times and stabbed me. Bastard, you just rely on having a good father. Don't let me catch you alone, otherwise. Hee hee. As he spoke, a deep excitement appeared in his eyes. It's almost done. The goods energy should have been wasted. Next, let me check the goods carefully, hee hee. After applying the medicine, the village chief put on his clothes gently, took out 2 syringes from the drawer and walked out. In the dim dungeon, only a few candles nearby could barely create some light. They looked around nervously, trying to find a way to escape. These people were all women, about 15 people, and their age was estimated to be under 30 years old. A woman in a university student uniform calmly analyzed everything in front of her. Where is this? Have we been kidnapped? Is anyone there? Is anyone there? Help us, can anyone hear me? Is anyone there? Bang! The iron door was opened. Everyone inside stood up when they heard the sound. They stood up and stared at the outside through the gap in the iron cage, with hope in their eyes. Hello, are you from the Metropolitan Police Department? We're looking for this place. I'm here, save me first. Asshole, why should I save you first? Stop arguing, the person who came, doesn't seem to be from the Metropolitan Police Department, This time, the girl in the college uniform said in a low voice. As soon as these words came out, the chattering voices instantly quieted down, and everyone stared at the person who came. Oh, I just seemed to hear some pretty girl talking about the Metropolitan Police Department. The man gradually approached, and the firelight also illuminated his appearance, and his ugly face appeared in everyone's sight. He walked in front of a girl, suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed her hair tightly, and pulled his face into the gap of the iron cage, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth, and said sarcastically, "You are talking about the Metropolitan Police Department, haha, let me tell you, there is no Metropolitan Police Department here, only the village chief, and I am the village chief, the person who makes all the rules of this village. I see that you are not bad looking. If you serve me well, maybe I will reward you with a few full meals, haha." As he said, in the girl's horrified eyes, he stretched out his tongue and licked her face like a pervert. Chapter 8. Ah, get out of here, you pervert, trash, ugly bastard. The girl ignored the pain of her hair being pulled, and stretched out her 2 slender arms from the iron cage, slapping the village chief's face fiercely. Hearing the words ugly bastard, the village chief's face darkened, and he paused his hand holding the hair, then pulled it hard, bang. A huge noise came, but he did not stop there, and continued to hit the village chief over and over again. Ah, no, Ah, get out of here! The girl's shrill screams echoed in the basement. Bang! 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 I was wrong, please let me go. After an unknown amount of time, the girl's screams gradually faded, and finally she stopped making any sound. She leaned against the iron cage with blood all over her head. She had just been slapping the village chief's hands, but now they were drooping weakly to the side, unconscious. The village chief let go of her hands, and she fell to the ground with a thud, without making any sound. Humph, you are such an ungrateful person. Village chief clapped his hands breathlessly and turned to look at the others, as if he had just stepped on an ant and didn't care. As for the others, their brains were still in a state of downtime. Everything that had just happened was still vivid in their minds. They were afraid that they would become the next one. The momentum just now had long disappeared. They wanted to bury their heads in the ground, not daring to breathe, for fear of attracting the attention of the man. Killing a chicken to scare the monkeys. The girl in uniform thought to herself. She looked around at the reactions of all the people nearby and was silent. It works very well. It seems that it is impossible to escape in the short term. In this case, there is no other way. After thinking for a while, the girl seemed to have made up her mind. She took a step back in the dim light of the fire, leaned on the edge of the cage, stretched out her hands, and without hesitation, she slammed them hard on her beautiful face. She frowned, feeling the hot blood flowing on her face. There was no time to feel sad. She put her hands on the ground and wiped the dust on the ground repeatedly until her hands became black. She rubbed the dust on her face, neck, arms, and legs. After some self-destruction, she successfully turned herself into a woman who made people give in. Due to the influence of the dim lighting in the environment, the village chief, who was just an ordinary person, did not notice what was happening. If you don't want to die, show me your face, maybe I can make your life better. Otherwise, hee. After saying that, he began to move his bloated body and shuttled between a dozen iron cages. During this time, he looked very satisfied, and occasionally said something like, "It's worth the high price." Until he walked to the iron cage where the uniformed girl was locked up, he looked at the girl who covered her face tightly, and his smile disappeared instantly, and he kicked the iron cage. Bang! Hey, didn't I tell you to lift your face up? Do you want to die? Village chief's vicious curse rang out, causing the other girls' hearts to tremble, but they couldn't help their curiosity and looked over here. The uniformed girl trembled and an unpleasant voice came out, "My lord, I'm ugly. I'm afraid of scaring you." The village chief frowned when he heard the girl's voice. How could it be uglier than the voice of the women in their village? He picked up the candle beside him and slowly reached into the iron cage. "Show me your face. I have never been scared in my life." The village chief was a little unconvinced. He spent so much money to buy the best product, how could it be ugly? After hearing this, the uniformed girl pretended to hesitate and said again, "No, sir, I'm really afraid of scaring you." Bang! Stop talking nonsense to me, hurry up. For some reason, the village chief began to hurry up, put his face closer to the candle, and stared at the girl's head. This time she didn't say anything, but raised her head without hesitation, and then quickly lowered her head. But even if it was only for a moment, her face was clearly seen by everyone. Ah, what the hell is this thing? Perhaps because of the dim environment and the bloodstains, or because of the guilty conscience caused by killing countless girls over the years, even the village chief who killed without blinking an eye also cried out after seeing it. His hand shook violently, and the candle fell directly to the ground. The other girls also gasped after seeing it. How could someone's face look like this? It was just like the female ghost in the movie who was wrongly killed and came to take her life. Several scars with bloodstains were extremely hideous, and with a layer of dust on the side, they were completely different from these little beauties who cried like pear blossoms in the rain and made people want to protect them at first sight. The candle that fell to the ground had been accidentally crushed by the ugly girl in fright and could no longer illuminate. The frightened village chief breathed a sigh of relief, as if he felt a little embarrassed, and kicked the iron cage hard again, cursing the bad luck in his heart. And then turned and left. He walked to the iron cage where the two beauties were imprisoned, took out a bunch of keys from his trouser pocket and began to try them one by one. The two people in the iron cage looked at this scene and didn't know whether they were happy or sad for a while. They were uneasy and began to pray with their hands clasped together, and tears began to flow unconsciously from their eyes. Bang! The iron door was opened, and the village chief walked in. Without saying a word, he took out 2 needles and stabbed them in the arms. The beautiful voice kept begging for mercy, but it didn't work. They gritted their teeth and began to break free from the village chief's hand and ran outside. The village chief who watched all this did not stop them and let them run outside. A few seconds later, when they reached the end, snap! The sound of falling came. The village chief laughed playfully, "You can save me a lot of energy every time, idiot." Then he looked back at the dazed people and said, "Stay well for me, don't try to escape, otherwise you should know your fate." He walked to the 2 girls lying motionless on the ground, grabbed one of their thin legs with one hand, and dragged them out roughly. Bang! It was not until the sound of the door closing that everyone came back to their senses. In the basement on the other side, Igarashi Tianyi had no idea what was happening over there. At this time, he was chatting with Aoki Ishuan. "Hey, Aoki, do you know the Jujutsu High School?" Igarashi Amaha said. "Hey? Are you kidding me? I'm a sorcerer, how could I not know about the sorcery high school?" Aoki said incredulously. "What, you want to go to the Jujutsu High School?" Chapter 9. Still considering it. Igarashi Amano said, he was still hesitant. Once he entered the Jujutsu High School, he would be under the eyes of the high-ranking officials. He would be hesitant about everything he did. But only the Jujutsu High School could truly understand all the hidden intelligence of this world. At the same time, when he was weak, his safety would be guaranteed to a certain extent. He was very conflicted. "I didn't expect you were once a student at Jujutsu High School. Come to think of it, I don't know you at all," Igarashi Amaha said. "What do I need to know?" Aoki said indifferently. "But I am curious. You are not a fool no matter how you look at it. Why are you imprisoned by a group of monkeys?" Igarashi raised his eyebrows while sitting on the blood turtle and asked with interest. "You were also caught, so you mean you are a fool?" Aoki laughed. "Why don't you take a good look at how old I am this year?" "Oh, sorry, I forgot you were a kid," Aoki said. "Tianyi asked, you have been here for so long, haven't your family and friends looked for you? And as a student of the Jujutsu High School, they should also look for you if you suddenly disappeared without a reason." Aoki's expression changed when he heard this topic. He turned over with his back to him and slowly said, "I don't have those things anymore. As for the Jujutsu High School, in their eyes, I may have died a long time ago." Igarashi Tianyi was silent after hearing this. Aoki continued, "I originally thought that I would die alone in this basement, but I didn't expect to meet such an interesting kid like you. What kind of spells, what kind of curses, what kind of sorcerers, they are all bullshit. You can't imagine that I was once a genius in the eyes of my neighbors and was called a top student of the University of Tokyo in the future." He laughed at himself and continued as if he had opened a box of words, "I am an orphan, but I am a lucky orphan. God gave me a flexible brain and an enviable learning ability. Because of this, I stood out among the children in the orphanage, and my reputation became louder and louder. The Lonely Genius, this middle school title, was a gift from the orphanage. As expected, I was adopted the following year. The person who adopted me was called Aoki Kenjo and his wife Aoki Seian. They were from an ordinary office worker family. Although they were not rich, they treated me very well. I gradually became cheerful. In this way, we walked into each other's lives and changed each other's destiny. 3 years later, when I was 10 years old, they got pregnant unexpectedly and gave birth to a younger brother for me, named Aoki Tokikawa. He was very cute and always liked to call me brother from behind." Speaking of Tokikawa, Aoki smiled unconsciously, very gently. The next second, his face turned painful just like that. "The days have been very warm. I grew up in a happy family and began to study hard without distraction. In a few years, I graduated from high school by myself, and the name of genius was completely established. On May 19, 1987, I awakened to the technique. I realized that I was different. I didn't understand what the technique was, so I began to use it without reservation." Igarashi Tianyi's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, Masaka. "Ah, that's right, I killed my parents and my brother with my own hands." The filthy attraction had just awakened at that time, and its attraction to curses was no weaker than that of special-grade cursed objects. They swarmed over and crushed my parents' heads in front of me. The splattered brains were scattered on my face, which was hotter than boiling water. As for Shi Chuan, that idiot, when he saw me standing there in a daze, he actually used himself as bait, to lure away the cursed beast. Aoki's voice was choked and his body was shaking. He succeeded and saved my enemy. I was saved by the people from the Jujutsu High School. After that, I was controlled by hatred. I relied on my learning ability to continuously study around the world and madly improve my own strength. Finally, 7 years ago, I became a level 1 sorcerer, and the title of genius appeared on me again. It's like a curse. After I became a level 1 sorcerer, I took my first commission to exorcise a level 2 cursed spirit. I thought it would be an easy task, so I went with my junior who was still a level 3 sorcerer. Aoki sat up, opened his shirt, revealing a hideous wound on his chest, and grinned in an extremely ugly way. Yes, I killed someone again. Igarashi Amano asked in confusion, how is it possible? Since you have been rated as a level 1 sorcerer, how could you not be able to deal with a level 2 curse? Level 1 and level 2 are worlds apart. Did something unexpected happen? Igarashi Amano guessed in his heart. Aoki did not answer his doubts, but asked another question. Do you know the King of Curses? Igarashi Amano was stunned. What do you mean? The King of Curses, Ryaman Sukuna. The most powerful curse from thousands of years ago, born with 2 faces and 4 arms. Before he died, he cut his soul into 20 parts and stored them in his fingers, hoping to be resurrected one day. These fingers have become a special kind of super curse. In the past 1000 years, the fingers have been spread all over the place. There are 20 of them, each of which has the ability to force ordinary cursed spirits to enter the ranks of special grade. And I, the unlucky guy, encountered one of them. That guy had even learned the end of the technique and the field was unfolded. Haha, I was saved again. I chose to run away. Haha, I, a genius, abandoned my own junior and was scared to run away. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Aoki laughed crazily, with snot and tears flowing down his face. After that, I didn't go back to Jujutsu High School. I just kept running away aimlessly until I was exhausted and fainted in this village. When I woke up again, I appeared here. It has been like this for 7 years. I still don't have the courage to face the reality. I don't dare to die. I'm afraid of meeting my parents, my younger brother, and my junior in hell. I'm afraid of them. This is the life of a genius like me, isn't it ridiculous? Haha. It feels so good to say it out loud. After that, Aoki fell into a deep sleep, as if he was tired of crying. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the skinny Aoki lying on the ground and sighed deeply. It turned out that it was not Kitano village that trapped him, but human nature. Chapter 10. Inside the basement, it was damp and cold, with no light except for a few white woven lamps that emitted a dim yellow light. 2 figures, one large and one small, loomed in the dim light. At this time, that woman hasn't come yet. I guess she won't come. You can have a good sleep again. Aoki roughly calculated the current time and said. Igarashi Tianyi raised his eyes and glanced at Aoki and said, why does what you said sound a bit regretful? What are you talking about? You are my dear brother, how can I bear to let you get hurt? Aoki said. Has your brain started to shrink? I don't want to be your younger brother. Igarashi Amano said. For some reason, ever since the last time they talked, Aoki began to call himself his younger brother without permission. Igarashi Amano was helpless about this. The two of them were now close friends, but in his heart, Aoki had always been his friend, not a family member. Aoki didn't care, don't say it so hurtfully. I'm so good to you. Come on, call me Uni-I-chan and let me hear it. Boring. Tisk, boring, he's just a kid, but he's so unlikable. Shi Chuan was also your age, but he was much more likable than you. King Mu curled his lips. Boring. You are boring. I don't know why you are so arrogant. Ha, let me advise you that arrogant people will never have any consequences. Tisk, you are not some random male protagonist, and I am not some tsundere yellow-haired guy. After all, my hair is black, isn't it? By the way, I still like the earliest you. You were very useful and didn't talk much. As for the way you are now, I can't say anything good about you. You're like a pervert, looking for brothers everywhere. Igarashi Amano shook his head and said with disgust. Aoki raised his bony arms and shook them, what the hell is this, you yellow-haired and black-haired guy, you always say things that people can't understand. Igarashi Amano ignored him. Aoki paused and suddenly said, Kid, how about we make a deal? The things in it can make you stronger. Hearing this, Igarashi Amano, who had his eyes closed, opened his eyes, looked at Aoki with interest, and raised his eyebrows. Tell me about it. You kid. King Mubai smiled unexpectedly and said, you also know my technique, it has no combat ability. Well, continue. Igarashi Amano nodded. Aoki continued, I was born with auxiliary skills, but I have the combat ability of a level 1 sorcerer, but it took me a lot of effort. I have traveled to so many places around the world and summarized several combat skills that are most suitable for sorcerers. Do you want to know, my lovely brother? After saying that, he smiled at Igarashi Amano, looking a little frivolous. What's the price? Tell me. Igarashi Amano asked without hesitation. He was still very envious of the fighting skills that Aoki said were most suitable for sorcerers. Even in the sorcery high school, the physical skills taught were only the most basic. If there was anyone who truly mastered physical skills, it was probably only that man, the Sky and Tyrant, Fushiguro Shire, who was called the Sorcerer Killer. Of course, the reason why Fushiguro Shire's physical skills were so powerful was also closely related to his physical body, which had to do with the Sky and the Curse. The Sky and the Curse were a special kind of bondage. Unlike other bondages that required both parties to conclude, they were forcibly given at birth, and had to be accepted even if they didn't want them. They were often accompanied by the sacrifice of innate conditions in exchange for some powerful abilities. Fushiguro Shire was like this, abandoning the cursed power to obtain a perfect body, the real ceiling of physical skills. The ultimate Sky and Curse are not a curse, but a gift. Back to the point, hearing what Igarashi Amano said, Aoki grinned as expected, pondered for a moment and said, it's actually very simple. As long as you call me Unii-chan, I will. Elder brother. I will tell you, Aoki was startled when he heard this familiar name, and stood there in a daze for a while. After a long time, he turned around and looked at Igarashi Amano in disbelief, his lips trembling uncontrollably. Can you call me again? Brother. Brother. Igarashi Tianyi patiently called again. After all, he was grateful for the favor. In order to obtain the most suitable physical skills for a sorcerer, it was just a matter of calling him brother. He was shivering. A moment of silence. After a while, Aoki, who had been silent, spoke up. My learning ability is special. No matter how much I learn, it will not affect me. Tell me what can be matched with your technique. I will give you the best choice. You can't chew too much. Igarashi Tianyi fell into deep thought after hearing this. Aoki was right. He has the ability to attack. It is better to choose physical skills that can be matched with the technique. Too many will be a burden. After a long time, Igarashi Tianyi raised his head, looked at Aoki firmly and said, my current attack means can control a certain amount of fire, so I want to learn a skill that can take into account speed while focusing on blasting, and a sword technique. I need speed, and a bit of concentrated high strength. Pa. Aoki slapped the ground with one hand and said at an amazing speed, got it, do you know Hwachu? Igarashi Tianyi raised his eyebrows. He lived there for decades in his previous life, how could he not know? He asked. I know. Hwachu, a place with 1,000-year history, has many kinds of martial arts. If it is really there, there is nothing strange. There is a city called Yangcheng in Hwachu, and in Yangcheng there is a place called Foquan. Go there and ask about a man called Yeqing Tian. He is one of my countless masters, and his ability can definitely meet your needs. Aoki said. Igarashi Tianyi heard it and understood it. Powerful fighting skills, Yang Cheng, surnamed Ye, he had guessed most of the boxing techniques that Aoki mentioned. If I remember correctly, Gojo Satoru in the original book also knows some of this boxing techniques, but it is only incomplete. Hwachu. We are going to meet again. Igarashi Tianyi couldn't help but feel a little emotional. It's such a big place, it will be too much trouble for me to go there by myself, why don't you take me with you? Anyway, you are alone, so if you follow me, maybe I can take care of you when I am in a good mood. Igarashi Tianyi was a little confused when he heard that Aoki wanted him to go by himself. Aoki waved his hand and chuckled, muttering softly, "Oh, I'm afraid I can't hold on until then." "What can't you hold on to?" Igarashi Tianyi's eyes condensed. Hearing Igarashi Tianyi's question, a trace of panic flashed in Aoki's eyes, and he hurriedly said, "No, nothing, I said Yakingtian's teaching method is very hard, I'm afraid you can't hold on. By the way, do you still need a sword technique?" Igarashi Tianyi heard Aoki's words and stared at Aoki suspiciously, but the light was dim, and he couldn't see the panic on Aoki's face. After watching for a while, he didn't find anything wrong, so he could only give up and began to ask about the sword technique. Aoki was relieved to see this, and he was confused in his heart. Why did he feel that this kid's 5 senses had become stronger? It was strange. As for the sword technique, he was quickly flipping through it in his mind at the moment. After a few seconds, he settled down and said, "Spain, Malaga." Chapter 11. On August 13, 2000, in Kitano village, 6 days had passed since Sato's appearance. During this period, through Aoki's evil induction, Igarashi Amano could maintain the exorcism of about 2 level 4 cursed spirits every day. Now his strength has barely reached the level of a level 3 sorcerer. Today, he has to wait until the resentment of that group of women forms cursed spirits, and then he can break through the shackles. Clatter. The sound of chains rang out, and Igarashi Amano and Aoki Agawa raised their heads at the same time. The two looked at each other with helplessness in their hearts, but they finally came. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and Aoki Agawa no longer waited and watched, turned around and started pretending to be dead. Click, click. The high heels stepped on the concrete floor, making a crisp sound, and 2 familiar figures appeared under the dim light. "Big Miss. This guy, Hangshan's." Eyes widened, and he murmured in shock as he looked at Igarashi Tianyi, whose body was intact. Sato was the same, looking at the boy on the blood turtle in disbelief. After a while, she came to her senses, and the shock in her eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a touch of crazy excitement. "It's really incredible. What should I do? What should I do? I can't bear to leave you, ha 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 ha." Sato stretched out his thumb and rubbed it hard on his blood-red lips, then began to smear it on Igarashi Amano's face, with a crazy and sick look on his face. "Well, let's get started, hee hee." The inhumane torture began. People will only fear the unknown. With the previous experience, Igarashi Tianyi can be said to be more at ease this time, but the pain is still real. If it weren't for the experience of living twice, which made him more able to bear it, he would have wanted to commit suicide long ago. After a long time, Sato panted and looked at the bruised boy in front of him. At this time, Igarashi Tianyi was in so much pain that he couldn't speak. The blood that flowed out had formed a pool of blood under his feet, but Sato didn't seem to be satisfied yet and stared at him tightly. Something strange happened. Sato looked at Igarashi Tianyi's face with bloodshot eyes. Her eyes were cold. She turned her head and said coldly to Hangshan, "Use all your strength." She pointed to the boy's forehead, "Hit me hard." When these words came out, several people in the basement were shocked, and so was Hangshan. He said embarrassedly, "This. Miss, this guy may die on the spot. He is a legitimate level 2 sorcerer. With a full-strength attack wrapped in cursed power, not to mention a teenager tied to the blood turtle, even a strong adult would be killed instantly. This is a joke." The same was true for Igarashi Amaya. Under the influence of the blood turtle, he used up his last bit of strength to gather all the cursed power in his head. The madness of this woman had exceeded his expectations. "Damn it, she's out of control." Snap! A crisp slap sounded, and Sato said to Hangshan in a bad tone, "You are just a servant, and you dare to disobey my decision. Do you want to die?" Hangshan's body trembled, and a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. Without saying a word, he quickly bowed and apologized. "I'm sorry, miss, please forgive me. If there is a next time, I will use your salary to pick a good cemetery for you. Go ahead, I want to see what the limit of this Igarashi kid is. Just go ahead and I won't be angry with you even if you die, don't worry." Hearing this, Hangshan was relieved. He didn't hesitate anymore, stepped forward quickly, raised his fist and aimed at Igarashi Tianyi's head. "Zero type, bad rock." Boom! A blue flame ignited on Hangshan's huge fist, and the burning sensation caused ripples in the surrounding air. Seeing this, Igarashi Tianyi felt a little absurd. "Damn it, this is impossible, all the skills are used, this rhythm is not going to stop until I am killed. Ha! Boom! Crack! Igarashi Amano flew backwards with the blood turtle and hit the wall behind him. The thick concrete wall shattered, and countless spider-web-like cracks spread out. This blow hit his forehead firmly and accurately, and the only remaining consciousness of Igarashi Amano disappeared in an instant. His head tilted back, his mouth opened wide, his eyes were broken, and he stared at the ceiling in a daze, without moving. Hung Shan stepped forward to check it out, turned back and said to Sato in a deep voice, "Miss, this kid's body is indeed top-notch, but with the blessing of the blood turtle, my blow has now made him unconscious, and it is estimated that he will die completely soon." Sato didn't respond, but just took a deep look at the unconscious Igarashi Tenha, then turned around and left without looking back. Hung Shan looked at Igarashi Tenha and then at Sato, who was about to walk away, squatted down to unlock the blood turtle that locked Igarashi Tenha. Just as he was about to pull Igarashi Tenha down and take the blood turtle away, a cold voice sounded. "Don't take it now, it won't be too late to come back next time," Sato said without turning his head. After hearing this, Hung Shan put down the handcuffs in his hand, ran to Sato's side quickly, and asked in confusion, "Does the eldest lady think that the boy will recover?" "Who knows? Haha." The footsteps became farther and farther away, until a sound of chains was heard, and the basement fell into silence again. Hung Shan walked quickly to a stretched luxury car, respectfully opened the back door for Sato, then walked around to the driver's seat. He opened the door, looked up at the grey sky, and felt an inexplicable uneasiness in his heart. Dust was falling, and tiny stars were twinkling. Hung Shan just stood there, his hair couldn't stop running, the noise in the street disappeared, a barrier isolated the world, and the world was also retreating in a mess at this moment. "Why aren't you leaving yet? What are you waiting for?" "No, nothing, it seems to be raining." Sato's cold voice brought Hung Shan back to his senses. Sato looked out the window and said casually, "Let's drive back to the family." "Yes, miss." The car started and drove away along the country road. The sky was gloomy and the light was extremely dim. Looking up, I saw patches of dark clouds floating from the sky. The clouds were black and grey, and the clouds were uneven, as if pressing on the top of the head, making people feel depressed. Not long after, thunder roared and drizzle fell. Raindrops fell from the sky and landed on the iron door of the basement, making bursts of roars, as if they were the wails of God. Rumble. Crash. Little devil, Igarashi Amaha, Igarashi Amaha. Boom. Crash. Hey, wake up, Igarashi Amaha, Igarashi Amaha. Who is it? It seems like someone is calling me. No, not me, my name is Liang Chuan, not Igarashi Amaha. In the end. What's going on? Chapter 12. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Wow. A dazzling white light flashed by, and Igarashi Tianyi slowly opened his eyes and carefully looked at everything in front of him. This is my inner world. Above the sea, in a pavilion, Igarashi Amano and a handsome man were sitting opposite each other on a chessboard. "Then who are you?" Igarashi Tianyi asked dully. "This person looks familiar, who is it? I can't remember." The handsome man was obviously stunned, but he quickly adjusted himself and answered calmly, "It's only been a few years, have you even forgotten it?" After that, he smiled helplessly and stretched out a hand. "Igarashi Tianyi, nice to meet you, my name is Liang Chuan, please give me your guidance." How is this possible?" Igarashi Tianyi was surprised and murmured in disbelief. "Nothing is impossible. It's a magical world, isn't it?" "Yes, it's amazing, things like rebirth can even be done." Igarashi Tianyi's consciousness gradually recovered, he calmed down, and said, "Tell me, the purpose of your appearance here, and who are you?" "I am Liang Chuan, and I am also Igarashi Tianyi. Besides, I don't remember when Liang Chuan liked to run around in morning clothes." He looked at the man in white morning clothes in front of him, raised his eyebrows, as if waiting for him to defend himself. The man in white shook his head and laughed after hearing this. "Your attention is always so special." He paused. "The purpose of my coming here is to fight with you, but seeing your current appearance, I temporarily changed my mind." After speaking, he looked at Igarashi Tianyi, waiting for his reaction. "Go on." Igarashi Tianyi nodded and did not interrupt, so he continued. "I am a healthy adult man, and I killed a child like you who is not fully conscious. If I tell others about it, I am afraid people will laugh their heads off. So, he pointed to the chessboard in front of him and said, use it, use your favorite chess piece, to decide your fate. Phew, ha 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 ha. After hearing this, Igarashi Amina couldn't help but burst into laughter while clapping the chessboard. After a while, as if he had laughed enough, he pointed at the man in morning clothes and said, it's so funny, stop talking nonsense to me. A lion will use all its strength to fight a rabbit. I have known this truth since I was a child. We are all chess players. Don't tell me you don't know. There are constraints and there are constraints. Don't talk so sanctimoniously. Who are you pretending to be? As if his thoughts were guessed, the man in morning clothes blushed for a moment. Why are you swearing at me? I am happy to do so. Don't be so annoying. If it weren't for the fact that I had to, I would have wanted to beat you up. Igarashi Tianyi felt relieved after cursing. His qualities that he had hidden for many years were fully exposed at this moment. Humph! The man in morning clothes snorted coldly, straightened his head and said, after so many years, it's still like this. I won't argue with you. If you are afraid, you can give up playing against me and give up your only way of survival. Snap! Igarashi Amano snapped his fingers, and the chessboard changed. The scattered chess pieces disappeared, replaced by a complete, brand new set of chess pieces. He stretched out a hand and raised an eyebrow at the man in morning clothes, please. The man in morning clothes did the same, please. The game began, and he began to explain his purpose and origins. You are right, I am not He Liang Chuan, but his shadow, that is, your shadow. Igarashi Tianyi laughed after hearing this, so, now you are planning to take over the magpie's nest. The man in morning clothes ignored him and continued to talk to himself. When humans reincarnate, the world will choose to plant a shadow on a person for the sake of balance, so as to balance a person's yin and yang, good and evil. This is the fate we are born with. There is a saying among you humans that when you are in a bad mood, you can bask in the sun and the bad mood will disappear. Haha, this saying is not wrong, but there is one thing wrong. Negative emotions will not disappear, they are just transferred. Your frustration, disappointment, uneasiness, anxiety, anger, depression, pessimism, loneliness, despair, will all be transferred to our shadows in double. We are like a trash can for negative emotions. These emotions are psychological discomfort to you, but for us, they are physical torture. Swish! The violent aura of the man in morning clothes could not be stopped, but just when he was about to hammer the chessboard, several black chains suddenly appeared in the void, tied him up tightly, making him unable to move, and emitting bursts of black smoke. Hiss! The sound of skin and flesh being roasted rang out. Ha 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 ha, see? This is your negative emotion. You hate it, but it turns into shackles to protect you and destroy us. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. He felt the burning sensation from the chains and laughed morbidly. I am different from other shadows. I was born with consciousness. I can do what you can do, and I can do what you can't do. Do you know why? This is all thanks to you, you devil. You were born with yin and yang, good and evil. If you want to live, blame your evil thoughts. You created me. He he he. I can't let you suffer the torture of these shackles, but I can become shackles, lock you up tightly, and deprive you of all your consciousness bit by bit. For this, I'm waiting so hard, ha 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 ha. Finally, God rewards those who work hard. A demon like you actually encounters rebirth, and the beginning is so miserable. Ha 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 ha, from then on, I knew that my chance had come, and the chance to deprive you had come. Any act of depriving others is a sin. I have been depriving others since I was born. Survival is the process of committing sins. Life itself is a sin. I know that I am a sin, but you are the beginning of this sin. The man in morning clothes. No, Shadow suddenly smiled gently and said, come on, kill me, destroy me completely, you will get your consciousness back and return to reality. On the contrary, if I kill you, you will turn into flying catkins and disappear in this world. From now on, there will be no more He Liang Chuan, no more Igarashi Amaniha, there will only be me, Shadow. Igarashi Amaniha smiled and nodded, in this life, I have felt that something is missing since I became conscious. I originally thought it was my illusion, but it seems that my feeling is not wrong. It turns out that you took the opportunity to steal it away. Come, take off the old shackles today. He Liang Chuan has ended, and the story of Igarashi Tianyi begins now. Chapter 13. Boom. Crash. An hour had passed since Sato and the others left, and the thunderstorm was still going on. The huge black clouds were like millions of lions, as if they were going to swallow up everything in the world. In the inner world, on the chessboard. Thump. Igarashi Tianyi supported his chin with one hand and knocked on the chessboard with the other hand, signaling the other party to hurry up. Hateful, shadows. Eyes were red as he stared at his dire situation, trying to find a glimmer of hope. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the anxious shadow and sneered, saying, I thought you were so great, talking so much, but after all this, you are just like this. How is it possible? I have clearly studied all your chess-playing ideas thoroughly. Why, this is obviously not your strength, damn it, what's wrong with you? Shadow roared in disbelief. He has followed He Liang Chuan for decades, and he has never heard of such chess ideas. It's like a different person. Igarashi Tianyi raised his eyebrows boredly. You have followed me for so many years, you must have figured out my every move, but have you ever thought about this? In all the past competitions, I have never used my full strength. He stroked his chin with his fingers and said playfully. Shadow listened carefully, and laughed angrily. How is it possible? After all, those guys are geniuses selected from tens of thousands of people. How is it possible that they can't even force you to use your full strength? Stop bluffing here, I won't believe your nonsense. Oh, it's up to you, if those ugly people can be considered geniuses. Igarashi Tianyi paused for a moment, then smiled beautifully and said, sorry, genius, it's just a farewell to me. Shadow was stunned on the spot after hearing this. Looking at his dead end, he pulled the corners of his mouth with difficulty, revealing an extremely ugly smile. So, is that so, He Liang Chuan? No, Igarashi Tianyi, I really can't believe that someone like you would get married in your previous life, a man who can even deceive his own shadow, ha, ridiculous, really ridiculous. Snap. Sorry, I'm a checkmate. The game is over. Igarashi Tianyi wins. Just a little bit and this body would be yours, what a pity, tut. Igarashi Tianyi shook his head and said regretfully. Oh, are you making fun of me? No, I'm just stating the facts, but your reaction is really beyond my expectation. Igarashi Tianyi said with a smile. Shadow looked at his body which was getting darker and darker, and shook his head in relief. Should I have red eyes, make a final counterattack, and then be held down by this chain? That would be too ugly. Igarashi Amano, I will wait for you in hell. Even if you regain some consciousness, you won't be able to survive that kind of blow, ha. Shadow's voice stopped abruptly, and his body turned into dust and disappeared into the air. Suddenly, a fierce mental shock swept over. Outside, Igarashi Amano, who had fainted, suddenly opened his eyes and gasped for air. So clear. Is this the complete me? My brain is fully active. It hurts so much. A sharp pain swept over him. Igarashi Tianyi felt his eyelids getting heavier and heavier. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, damn it, living is so fucking hard. I might really die this time. Little boy, how are you? Aoki Ishuan asked hurriedly as he looked at Igarashi Amano, who suddenly opened his eyes. Igarashi Amano looked sideways, only to see Aoki Ishuan looking anxious, looking at him with worry in his eyes, which made him stunned. He used his remaining strength to tease, hey, are you serious? You don't really think of me as your brother, there's no need to be so sad, hee. Aoki Ishuan frowned and scolded, don't talk nonsense, how are you serious? I saw that your breathing was relatively stable when you were unconscious, but how come you woke up and it became weaker and weaker? Igarashi Amano shook his head and laughed after hearing this, muttering in his heart, it should have been the shadow who did it just now, so that after he occupied my body, he could quickly heal the wound. He really gives me warmth. I can still take a few breaths now. If there is no curse spirit, I may only have these few breaths. Igarashi Tianyi said. After hearing this, Aoki Ishuan fell silent and stopped talking. Igarashi Amano was also stunned when he saw Aoki Ishuan's silence, then he sighed unconsciously, closed his eyes, and felt sad. I finally encountered such a thing as rebirth, and finally regained part of my long-lost spirit. I finally can live freely, but now I have to wait for death in this dim basement. It's so bloody. After being reborn for a few years, I was either beaten or abused. I haven't even started to feel good, and I'm going to die. It's really a shitty fate. Crackle. The sound of chains being dragged was heard, and Igarashi Amano opened his eyes weakly and looked. It was Aoki Ishuan. He was dragging a chain thicker than his arm and walking slowly towards him. Little ghost, although there is no curse spirit, there is still a way to let you survive. Aoki Ishuan said with his fists clenched tightly. Igarashi Tianyi sighed helplessly, closed his eyes and said weakly, kill you and then eat you, right? Aoki Ishuan was stunned, with a bitter smile on his face. So you have already thought about it, then why don't you do it? Oh, of course I've thought about it, but now I can only show my verbal skills. You and I are at most cellmates with a good relationship. I would be very happy to kill you in exchange for my life. But don't use the brother filter too much. I will not play any drama of brothers in distress with you. After all, I am not a saint, nor the obedient brother in your memory, ha ha ha. Igarashi Tianyi laughed dryly twice, then adjusted his sitting position with all his strength, as if he was going to find a comfortable position before dying. You really have no mercy on me. After all, we have lived here together for such a long time. If you have something to say, say it. If you don't, retreat. I don't have the energy to chat with you. Let me die quietly. Every minute and every second, the severe pain is poking my nerves. I really don't have the strength to talk to you. Igarashi. Tianyi said in a low voice. Aoki Ishuan shook his head and smiled, then said shockingly, what if I say that I am willing to use everything I have in exchange for your life? Chapter 14. Under the dim white woven lamp, two depressed figures were staring at each other deeply. What if I say, I am willing to give everything I have in exchange for your life? This joke is not funny, I will take it seriously. This is not a joke. Igarashi Tianyi looked at Aoki Ishuan, who looked serious, and asked in confusion, can you tell me why? Don't say anything like I look like your brother, even dogs won't believe it. Aoki Ishuan staggered to the side of Igarashi Tianyi, pointed to his collapsed chest, and said with a wry smile, what do you think will happen if I get out alive in this state? I was once a genius sorcerer, but was imprisoned by a group of monkeys for 7 years. I am afraid of being embarrassed. How about this reason? I am not a person who doesn't know what is good for me, but have you really made up your mind? Igarashi Tianyi asked after a moment of silence. Aoki Ishuan answered without hesitation, of course, I don't have the bad taste to use this kind of thing to make you happy. Come on. Aoki Ishuan opened his arms, hugged Igarashi Amani and whispered. It's really inexplicable, Igarashi. Tianyi didn't expect that the first time he hugged someone in his life, he would be in such a situation. He closed his eyes tightly, opened his trembling jaw, and bit Aoki Ishuan's throat fiercely. Puff. Humph. Aoki Ishuan groaned. The blood of the bastard flowed into Igarashi Tianyi's mouth. After an unknown amount of time, he opened his jaw, and the powerless Aoki Ishuan staggered back and sat down on the ground. That's it, haha, Aoki. Ishuan endured the severe pain and made an unpleasant sound. Don't feel guilty, these are all my wishful thinking. Maybe, it's my psychological problem, my mind is always in a trance. I mistook you for Shi Chuan, you said, you are at such a good age, such a great talent, it's a pity to die with a dark sewer rat like me. Aoki Ishuan laughed dryly and slowly raised one hand. He used up his last bit of strength to clench it into a fist and touched Igarashi Tianyi's fist. I will die here, fulfilling the final meaning of life. Don't be sad, I have already been like a mummy, rotting and decaying here, but you who have the power to break the wind shouldn't be like this. Go, carry me, and overthrow this cruel world, Tianyi. No, my brother. Bang. After saying that, he walked straight over, looking at the ceiling, he laughed. Shi Chuan, your brother is here to see you. The basement fell into silence, and Aoki Ishuan's usual rough breathing also disappeared. Igarashi Tianyi stared at Aoki Ishuan lying on the ground, with an unclear meaning in his heart. Suddenly, he felt a hint of warmth on his cheek. Is it tears? No, no, it's Aoki's blood. He laughed at himself. He killed his friend with his own hands, but he couldn't bear to shed even a tear. Is it selfish, or cold-blooded? I wonder if Aoki will regret it if he knows. Igarashi Tianyi closed his eyes, his consciousness sank slightly, and he fell into a deep sleep. Day and night alternated, and after an unknown amount of time, he slowly opened his eyes. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. The familiar scene was his inner world, the unchanging environment, the blue sea, and the ink-colored chessboard. He looked at the fifth pawn floating in the air above the chessboard, which was gleaming with light, and suddenly a wave of sadness surged in his heart. He grabbed the chess piece and rubbed it gently, saying in his heart, King Mu, thank you, don't worry, I will take you to slaughter all the cursed spirits in this world, don't worry, brother. Click. The fifth pawn entered the game. The next second after the move. Boom. 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 The calm sea surface suddenly began to boil. Hiss. Hiss. The sound of evaporation from the fusion of water and fire came, and a vast white fog suddenly rolled up from the ground. The outside of the attic was shrouded in the diffuse fog, and nothing could be seen. Roar. A sharp roar sounded, and the harsh sound made people shudder. Whoosh whoosh. A violent wind suddenly rose, and a huge purple-white shadow appeared in the white mist. He opened and closed one eye, as if he had seen through the world, with a breath of vicissitudes. Boom. It spread its wings, creating a huge wind pressure. The white mist dissipated in an instant, and the sea surface also raised huge waves, but Igarashi Tianyi in the attic was not affected at all. He looked at the chessboard, stretched out 2 fingers without looking back, and pointed at the red owl. A ethereal voice came from between heaven and earth. Red owl. Roar. The red owl seemed to be frightened, and its body exploded instantly, turning into several white silks burning with purple-white flames, flying towards Igarashi Tianyi. The silk threads changed in thousands of ways and surrounded Igarashi Tianyi's side. The next second, the silk threads danced wildly and drilled into various parts of his body. At this moment, the transformation began. Boom! A purple-white flame began to burn around him. Igarashi Tianyi clenched his hands tightly, and the burning sensation filled his internal organs. He could feel that the silk threads transformed by the red owl were running rampant in his body, flowing into his bones along the meridians. The severe pain brought him back to reality. The heat from his body had melted the handcuffs of the blood turtle. At this time, his lips were scorched, his vision was blurred, his face was red, and his hands were placed on his chest, panting heavily. In a trance, he seemed to see something crawling next to King Mu's body. His pupils focused and he looked closely. It turned out to be a mouse, gnawing on King Mu's body. Igarashi Tianyi immediately stood up and wanted to drive the mouse away. But he just stood up and fell down again. His legs seemed to be pulled and boned, soft and without a trace of strength. The mouse heard the sound, looked back at Igarashi Tianyi who fell to the ground, shouted mockingly, and turned back to continue to feast. He tried to stand up several times, but his legs seemed to have melted and would not obey him. Damn, it's really embarrassing. Igarashi Tianyi looked at his current appearance, laughed dryly, and frantically mobilized his own magic power, and his muscles suddenly contracted. Boom! He disappeared from the spot in an instant and appeared next to Aoki, holding the mouse in his hand that wanted to escape. He smiled bloodthirstily at the mouse. Boom! A purple-white flame burst out from his hand and burned the mouse to ashes. After doing all this, he only felt that his brain began to become drowsy, and after a while of dizziness, he fell to the ground, lying next to Aoki, and fell asleep. At this time, a purple barrier unfolded from his body to the outside, covering the two of them, and his body was emitting a bright purple light, and the wounds all over his body began to heal rapidly under the illumination of this purple light. And Igarashi Tianyi was still completely unaware of this. Chapter 15 August 15, 2000, early morning. The morning light was brilliant, the mountain tops shone with golden light, and the sunset glow dyed the lush forests gorgeously, like clusters of silhouettes, with distinct light and dark, dazzling the eyes. The mornings in the village are always so beautiful. A bird humming a beautiful tune landed beside an iron gate, happily drinking dew. But the next second, this peaceful scene was broken. Boom! The iron gate was blasted open by the purple flame with a bang, and scattered sparks splashed everywhere. The miserable bird was unfortunately stained with a drop of it, and instantly turned into ashes and disappeared from the world. The huge roar was particularly eye-catching in the quiet village. After only a few minutes, many villagers came one after another. What happened? What happened? Look, it's that guy. It's the unknown person from the Ishii family, right? Yes, that bastard. I still have a wound on my shoulder from that guy. How did this guy get out? Go and inform the village chief. Everyone, get your weapons, quickly. At this time, a fat man ran over with a group of strong men holding farm tools. Igarashi Tianyi looked up, and after seeing who was coming, he smiled meaningfully. The village chief came forward and looked around. When he saw the person in Igarashi Tianyi's arms and the broken iron gate, he suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart, this kid. I'm afraid I can't afford to offend him. I must notify them as soon as possible. He rolled his eyes and immediately shouted to the villagers around him, everyone, catch him quickly. If we let him run away, none of us will have a good ending. Go. Catch him. Whoever catches him first, I will reward him with a woman on behalf of the village. The words of the village chief were like a stimulant, making the blood of these men boil, and they rushed forward one by one as if they were risking their lives. It's so sad. Igarashi. Amano looked at the people rushing over, slowly put Aoki on the ground, simply moved his limbs, and then rushed forward. Bang! Igarashi Amano caught the oncoming fist, bent his body slightly downward, used his palm as a sword, and stabbed the man's heart fiercely. Puff! The man's chest was pierced instantly, and hot blood splashed, staining the faces of the people around him. Igarashi Amano raised his arm and swung it back. Puff! The man who died with his eyes open was thrown out like garbage and fell at the feet of a group of people. This made the confused people come back to their senses. They usually only helped the village chief to beat people, and they had never come into contact with such things as killing people. Now their neighbor was killed by a 10-year-old child, and it was in front of them, which made them panic. Dead, dead. You bastard. What should I do? I don't want to die. I don't want to die yet. My son just learned to call me dad. I don't want to die either. I promised my son that I would take him hunting in the mountains today. Where is the village chief? Where did the village chief go? At this time, everyone had already discovered that the village chief had disappeared. In the face of their pleas for mercy, Igarashi Tianyi scratched his ears irritably and shouted impatiently next. His words made everyone's heart tremble, and they stepped back without thinking, and did not dare to look at Igarashi Tianyi. Oh, interesting, you're not coming, right? Then I'm coming. As soon as the voice fell, Igarashi Amaha took a step forward. Whoosh! He took a step and instantly appeared next to a man. Igarashi Amaha's arm gently rested on his shoulder. This suddenness made the man freeze in place instantly. The blood in his body froze. His teeth trembled and he begged in a crying voice, please, please, let me go. I just promised my child before I came. Puff! Before he could finish his words, the man's head instantly turned into a pool of blood, splashing on the ground. Igarashi Tianyi casually shook off the blood on his hands and said nonchalantly, you promised it, not me, it has nothing to do with me. Bang! After a few seconds of stiffness, the headless body fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Igarashi Tianyi turned his head, raised his childish face splashed with a few drops of blood, and grinned at the others. It's your turn. Ah, run, he is a demon. Help! Run! Run! Everyone dispersed, running back without looking back. Seeing this, Igarashi Tianyi put his hands in his pockets, a hint of mockery appeared in his eyes, but he was not in a hurry, and even cheered them up, run faster, work harder, work harder, work harder, work harder. That's right, haha. Swoosh! Igarashi Tianyi flashed and appeared above a strong man who was trying to escape. He stepped on the strong man's shoulders. But the strong man seemed not to notice, and continued to run with red eyes, and big drops of sweat hit the ground. Hey, don't run away! Hearing this, the strong man stopped where he was, not daring to move. Click! His shoulder felt light, and there was a sound of footsteps behind him. The strong man's heart tightened, and he quickly knelt on the ground and closed his eyes. Please, please, let me go, I was not there when you were arrested, let me go, please. No one paid any attention to him, and he didn't care, he continued to kowtow and beg for mercy. After a while, there was still no footsteps, he made up his mind, swallowed his saliva, forced himself to suppress the fear in his heart, turned his head stiffly and opened his eyes. Hey, let's go, have we left? Hey, I'm alive. Seeing that there was no one behind him, he let out a long sigh, and his heart finally settled down. Thinking back to what had just happened, he couldn't bear it anymore, and tears flowed down his face. He turned around and wiped his tears vigorously. He made up his mind to take his wife and children away as soon as he returned and escape from this place of trouble, but unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. The blurred vision gradually became clear, and a face and a hand appeared in the field of vision. Igarashi Amano was seen with his left hand in his pocket, and his right hand was pressed against his forehead with the gesture of a gun. Igarashi Amano smiled warmly and slowly uttered a word, bang. The strong man's pupils shrank suddenly. No. Puff. Don't worry, your family will come to find you soon, don't worry. After saying that, he raised his footsteps and stepped on the man's body and walked away. Chapter 16. Clang. An iron door was opened, and the dazzling sunlight poured down, adding a touch of life to the dark room. Inside the room, a woman in an iron cage looked up. She looked disheveled, and the blood clots on her face made her look even more weird. The woman saw who was coming, and was surprised, but she quickly regained her composure. She looked at the blood and murderous aura on the young man, sighed deeply, shook her head and said weakly, what a bunch of idiots, they even dared to tie up a sorcerer. Igarashi Tianyi raised his eyebrows after hearing this. He actually knew about the sorcerer. He walked over and asked with interest, you seem to be different from those guys. That group of guys. The girl was puzzled for a moment, then she realized that those guys he was talking about were probably the girls who were abducted like herself. Now it seems that they are in great danger. Are you here to silence me? The girl asked. Igarashi Amaha smiled faintly and answered without hesitation, yes, it will be very troublesome if what happened here gets out. I don't want to be hunted down by the special class. Really, if it weren't for you, I should be able to get out alive. The girl spread her hands in a complaining manner, hey, give me a quick death, don't make me too painful, I don't like it. Igarashi Tianyi squatted down, leaned his face against the middle of the iron cage, and suddenly said, I'm suddenly curious about your name. The girl shook her hands in an urgent manner, all right, what's so good about asking the name of a dying person, hurry up, don't you know how difficult it is for a young girl to face death? Tell me, maybe I will let you go. Igarashi Tianyi said with a bit of a sinister tone. Really? Really? The girl immediately sat up and introduced herself in a spirited manner, my name is Chen Yuan, Puff. The girl's eyes widened, looking at the boy who inserted his hand into her heart in disbelief. She was about to ask something, but a burning sensation blocked her throat. Boom! The purple-white flame began to spread along Igarashi Amano's arm, and in an instant, the girl was burned to ashes. He shook his hands, scratched his head apologetically, looked at the pool of ashes in the cage and said regretfully, sorry, I suddenly don't want to know your name anymore. After that, he put his hands in his pockets, stood up and walked out, muttering, troublesome surname, troublesome woman. Back outside, it was almost noon, and the dazzling sunlight shone through the clouds and onto the earth, making him squint his eyes. Suddenly, as if he remembered something, he looked back at the shadow behind him, then looked at the sun hanging high in the sky above his head, and smacked his lips. Well, the sun is really comfortable. Igarashi Tianyi slowly began to walk towards the center of the village. Next, only the women and children were left. Wail. Crying. You will be punished by God, you devil. Oh, if there really is such a thing as punishment, then I am the punishment from heaven for you. No. On August 15, 2000, in a remote village west of Shibuya, all 23 men, 33 women, 16 children, and 10 elderly people in the village died at 9:43 am Tokyo time. Wait a minute. Igarashi Tianyi walked behind a ruin and easily lifted a huge stone slab, revealing the cabinet below. In the mezzanine of the cabinet, a baby still in swaddling clothes was crying loudly. Tisk, trouble. Puff. The crying stopped abruptly. All 23 men, 33 women, 17 children, and 10 elderly people in the village died at 9:45 am Tokyo time. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the ruined Kitano village, with a complicated look in his eyes. He hoped that he would not be discovered too soon. He picked up a pack of cigarettes on the ground, feeling a little nostalgic, and almost forgot that he was also a smoker. His fingers lit a flame, lit the cigarette, and took a deep puff. Hey! He walked to a high point, sat down slowly, looked at the corpses all over the ground, and said jokingly, well, this should be considered as a post-event smoke, hee. The next morning, on a hillside, Igarashi Tianyi sat cross-legged beside a wooden tombstone, saying nothing, just talking about the tombstone with a sharp gaze. After an unknown amount of time, the sun set in the west, and Igarashi Tianyi finally got up. But he just stood up and sat down quickly, as if he had noticed something. Damn, my legs are numb. He stood up stiffly, stretched his body, looked at the tombstone and whispered, don't worry, I will find the cursed spirit, and I will kill it with your own hands. As he spoke, several flames ignited around him, and the terrifying temperature made the air around him wail. He turned his head and looked deeply into the distance, which was the direction of Shibuya. Igarashi Amano's expression became cruel and he murmured in a cold voice, I hope you can come soon, don't make me wait too long. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and 3 days have passed in the blink of an eye. Beside a winding path west of Kitano village, Igarashi Amaha was lying on a huge tree branch, leisurely chewing an apple. This was the only way to Kitano village. If that guy was coming, he would definitely pass by here. The other hand was snapping his fingers to kill time, and his fingertips rubbed lightly, and some flames emerged from time to time. Buzz! At this moment, the roar of a car appeared in this quiet forest. Igarashi Amaha raised his eyes and took a look. He bit the last piece of flesh with reluctance, stood up slowly, looked at the luxury car speeding in the distance, and then looked at the fruit core in his hand. He raised his arm slightly, and then swung it violently into the distance. Whoosh! A burst of wind-breaking sounded. Snap! The fruit core hit the car window accurately, shattered into a pool of powder, and completely covered the glass. The 2 people in the car were also startled by this blow. What the hell? Hung Shan didn't think twice and braked the car to stop it. He quickly looked back through the rearview mirror. Sato, who was awakened, had an extremely gloomy face, as if water was about to drip out. What's going on? The cold voice sounded, causing Hengshan's heart to tremble violently. Miss, it seems like someone threw a fruit core. Fruit core? Hung Shan got out of the car immediately to check, but when he saw the person in front of him clearly, he froze in place. With trembling lips, he murmured, how is this possible? Tisk. Sato in the back seat clicked his tongue in annoyance and got up and got out of the car. Hey, what's going on? What is going on? How is this possible? Sato's pupils shrank suddenly, and he looked at the boy in front of the car in disbelief, who was chewing an apple. When Igarashi Tianyi saw the woman getting off, he also raised his hand politely to say hello, and smiled with narrowed eyes. Hey, sassy Bewley Dana, Sato. Chapter 17. Sato looked at Igarashi Amano in disbelief, and for a moment he forgot the grudge between him and Igarashi Amano. Igarashi Amano shook the bitten apple in his hand, and then threw it at Sato without saying a word. Whoosh! Miss, be careful! Hung Shan, who was quite powerful, reacted immediately and flew over, trying to stop the apple, exposing his abdomen completely to Igarashi Tianyi's vision. And this was exactly the result he wanted to see. Igarashi Tianyi's eyes condensed, and his hands burned with flames. His figure instantly disappeared from the spot like a ghost. Whoosh! Boom! With his body suspended in the air, Hung Shan, who had no time to react, took the blow hard. Bang! 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 Hengshan's broad figure flew backwards, knocked down several trees, and plowed a deep gully on the ground. A large cloud of dust floated up, and a figure slowly walked out of it. Hung Shan pulled his tie, looked at Igarashi Tianyi fiercely, spit out a mouthful of bloody saliva, and grinned. Boy, I promise you, you will die miserably. After saying that, he raised his other hand, in which was held the half-eaten apple of Igarashi Amano. He exerted a little force with his palm, and with a snap, the apple crushed, and the juice flowed down his palm to his elbow. Hearing Hengshan's words, Igarashi Amano was not annoyed. He rubbed his neck and said, when did a dog learn to talk nonsense? It seems that the dog trainer of the Sato family is not that good. Looking for death? Hung Shan roared after hearing this and rushed forward. Igarashi Tianyi did not avoid the fight and also went forward. Dust flew up, and the 2 figures were fighting at an extraordinary speed. The strong wind from the fist lifted up the expensive black suit. Hengshan's expression was violent, and the flames of cursed power ignited on his legs. He turned around and kicked hard and swept forward. You bastard, die! Don't you think you are invincible just because you have some cursed power? Let me show you what a real sorcerer is like. Igarashi Amano leaned back, his upper body almost parallel to the ground, and Hengshan's kick just brushed past his nose. The wind made his cheeks hurt. Igarashi Amano understood in his heart that this guy really had the strength of a level 1 sorcerer. Even with just a random blow, he could easily kill a level 2 cursed spirit. A woman with only a little bit of cursed power can make a level 1 sorcerer willingly serve as a bodyguard. The power behind Sato must not be underestimated. If you kill her, it will definitely feel great, hehe. Using force on his waist, Igarashi Amano quickly adjusted his posture, grabbed Hengshan's leg with one hand, turned over and pulled himself off the ground, and then kicked him without adjusting. Hengshan reacted quickly, the cursed power in his hand surged, and he slammed the ground hard. Get out of here! Boom boom! Before Igarashi Tianyi could react, a stone pillar suddenly rose from the ground and pushed him into the air. A rock-related spell? It matches his body shape. Whoosh! A gust of wind and sand blew by. Igarashi Tianyi stood on the stone pillar, looking at Hengshan below and began to make calculations in his mind. He must figure out what his spell is. Just as his brain was working quickly, Hengshan's voice came from below. Are you thinking about my technique? Haha, let me tell you. My magic can mobilize all the rocks within a certain range and change their shape and mass. Illegal operation. Igarashi Tianyi narrowed his eyes slightly, and became more alert in his heart. It seems that this big guy is not that stupid. He knows that his technique is simple and easy to understand, and it is easy to be detected. So he simply makes the technique public to gain the greatest benefit for himself. The so-called publicizing of the technique is equivalent to adding a restraint to oneself, which can enhance the power of the technique. Of course, one can also choose to provide false information to mislead the opponent. Hengshan ignited the cursed flames in his hands. He squatted down and looked at Igarashi Amano above him and continued. As for the conditions for activating the technique, it is to touch the ground. As soon as Hengshan finished speaking, the cursed power in his body suddenly surged out, and it was even more powerful. Snap! As he slapped the ground with one hand, suddenly, countless spikes made of rocks rose from the ground, rushing in all directions, rushing towards Igarashi Amano in the sky. Igarashi Amano, who had nowhere to hide, no longer hesitated. Blazing flames suddenly emerged from his arms. He swung his arms, and the purple-white flames began to wriggle, instantly condensing into two long swords in his hands. Ha 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 ha! Without thinking, he shouted, and his arms began to dance rapidly. The spikes that covered the sky were all cut off. Wherever the sword passed, the rocks were burned to ashes, leaving only sparks of fire. Seeing this, Hengshan frowned. There is something wrong with the fire on this bastard, and his ability to adapt is a little too fast. This can't go on. Finish him off before he gets used to it. Without hesitation, he took off his shoes and exposed his toes. He smiled ghostly. It was true that the condition for activation was to touch the ground, but he didn't say that this did not include toes, haha. Hengshan moved and ran towards Igarashi Amano in the distance. At the moment when his 5 toes touched the ground, the stone pillars at a certain place also changed. Boom! The stone pillar under Igarashi Amano's feet suddenly broke apart, and he fell down uncontrollably. The stone pillar that turned into pieces trembled slightly at this moment. Igarashi Amano's pupils shrank when he saw this, and a chain woven with purple and white flames instantly shot out from his back and shot towards the ground. The moment the chain touched the ground, it began to shorten suddenly, pulling Igarashi Amano out of a pile of rocks. And the next second after Igarashi Amano left there, countless broken stones gathered instantly. If he hadn't run away just now, he would probably have been stabbed into a hornet's nest by now. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Hengshan's voice came from behind him. Boy! I admit that you have an excellent fighting talent, but you made a mistake in choosing me as your opponent. Type 1 piercing and killing. Igarashi Tianyi's face also became gloomy at this time. Damn it, you really treat me like a soft persimmon. Bastard! He turned around and raised his fist, shouting fiercely. Red Owl! Boom! The purple-white flames around Igarashi Tianyi exploded, and his shirt was instantly turned into ashes. His left face was completely replaced by flames, and a half-winged mask formed by flames covered it. The whole person looked majestic and mysterious. Chapter 18. Die, little brat! Igarashi Amini also raised his fist and swung it heavily. There was no beauty, no technique, just a pure explosion of physical strength. The scorching purple flames shuttled through his bones, greatly increasing his speed and strength. Bang! The air let out a mournful cry in mid-air. The two fists collided heavily in mid-air, bursting out a terrifying wave of air. The fierce wind made Hengshan's expensive suit crackle. The yellow sand suddenly rolled up from the ground, and countless flying sands flew all over the sky. Sato, who had been observing everything from a distance, suddenly widened his eyes and looked shocked. This kid, when I went there a few times before, I had very little magical power, how come it is so strong now? Facing Hengshan, a famous level 1 sorcerer, I didn't show any fear at all, I really decisively attacked. Igarashi, is just a waste of the old times, you'd better disappear honestly. In the yellow sand, the boy looked determined, with a heroic smile on his lips, and the wind wave blew his hair in front of his forehead. Like a beast, he tore through the yellow sand. It's just a piece of mud, get out of here. Boom! Countless flames erupted from Igarashi Tenai's fist, and instantly enveloped Hengshan. Igarashi Tenai put his other hand on Hengshan's fist, used the force to turn his body in the air, and kicked out directly. The next moment, bang! Hengshan's figure flew out like a missile, and hit the ground dozens of meters away at a very fast speed. Sato looked at the big hole smashed by Hengshan, and was a little panicked for a while. She quickly hid in a corner and started to dial a phone, ready to seek reinforcements. But just as she hurriedly opened the lock, a heat wave swept over, and a layer of sweat instantly appeared on her forehead. No shaking, Miss Sato. A frivolous voice sounded from above. Sato's body stiffened. She swallowed her saliva and looked up cautiously. She saw Igarashi Amaya with flames burning on her body looking at her with amusement. He was her plaything a few days ago, but now the situation is completely reversed. This feeling made Sato feel humiliated. But her reason told her that the other party was just a country bumpkin who had just awakened his technique and happened to have the surname Igarashi. Thinking of this, she was no longer afraid. She stumbled to her feet and looked directly at Igarashi Amaya. She said proudly, "Do you know who my father is? He is Sato. SHH. But before she could finish her words, a finger with scorching heat stopped beside her lips, and the temperature emitted from it instantly made her cherry lips swell up like a fire bubble. You have to ask your mother who your father is, but according to my analysis, it shouldn't be me, after all, I am older than you, so it's useless for you to tell me, you know." Sato was ashamed and angry when she heard what Igarashi Amano said, but the pain on her lips told her not to act rashly, otherwise the guy in front of her would really kill her. Her face flushed, and she said vaguely yes, yes. Igarashi Amano nodded with relief. He took the phone from Sato's hand, looked left and right and said, "I will confiscate your phone. Go play somewhere else, don't worry, I won't kill you, after all, you are still pretty and worth a lot of money." Sato was stunned when he heard it, and began to ask in disbelief, "What do you mean? What do you mean by valuable? What do you want to do to me?" "Well, to put it simply. Asshole, stay away from the young lady," a voice shouted angrily. Whoosh! Bang! Igarashi Tianyi stretched out a hand without looking back, caught the flying giant tree, shrugged at Sato, and then turned back to Hengshan. "Hey, you stupid dog who can play with mud, do you guys whose skills are related to stones have thick blood bars? You are so resistant to beatings." Hengshan was stunned when he heard Igarashi Tianyi call him, and then the veins on his forehead began to jump uncontrollably, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Asshole, I must tear your mouth apart." Ah! Hengshan stretched his arms backwards, veins popped out, and curse power erupted from his body. With a roar, he swung his arms forward fiercely. Boom! Boom! A stone pillar as big as a tall building rose from the ground and crushed towards Igarashi Tenai. Igarashi Tenai's eyes condensed, flames surged all over his body, and whoosh! He disappeared from the spot, leaving only a trace of sparks. "Don't even think about running away." Hengshan swung his arms, and the stone pillar suddenly accelerated and rushed in the direction of Igarashi Tianyi. "Wearing a padlock? It's not that simple." Igarashi Tianyi paused, and the flames on his arms burned wildly, instantly forming two protective blades that wrapped around his arms. Since you can't dodge, I'll split you in half. Ah! Hat! The stone pillar collided with the blade, and with just a pause, the stone pillar was cut in half, like a piece of tofu, stirring up a gust of flying sand, so smoothly that it seemed a little unnatural. No! Igarashi! Tianyi's heart moved. Without hesitation, he immediately crossed his hands in front of his chest and began to defend. Sure enough, bang! The flying sand was torn apart, and a huge fist made of rocks rushed towards him. Even though he had made a defense, Igarashi Tianyi was still blasted away directly, hitting a huge tree, holding his chest and began to cough and spit blood. Hung Shan did not give him a chance to breathe, and flashed in front of Igarashi Tianyi in a flash, and began to hammer with both fists. Ah! Ola! 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 Fists like a storm fell on Igarashi Amaha. I see, the reason why the stone pillars are faster is because their quality has been reduced. You are good at using a sleight of hand. If you continue like this, you will be completely dragged into the opponent's rhythm. Igarashi Tianyi, who was desperately resisting, quickly thought about Hengshan's fighting style and the trajectory of his punches, and quickly made a decision: stab left. Swing right. After thinking about it, Igarashi Tianyi no longer defended with both hands, and grabbed out fiercely. Snap! What? What? Hengshan's pupils trembled, and he looked at his fists that were tightly grasped with shock. How is this possible? Swoosh! Swoosh! Two shackles extended from Igarashi Tianyi's right arm, tightly binding Hengshan's arm. Before Hung Shan could come to his senses, he heard a cold voice accompanied by a burst of piercing pain. Nothing is impossible, I am a genius. Chapter 19. Crash! Nothing is impossible, I'm a genius. The sound of chains shaking rang out, and Igarashi Amano firmly locked one of Hengshan's arms with his right hand. Then he sank his waist, pulled Hung Shan back violently, and threw him directly onto the giant tree behind him. Without waiting for Hung Shan to react, Igarashi Amano kicked sideways again, firmly holding Hengshan's neck. Then he smiled bloodthirstily and said mockingly, "Say goodbye to your five-finger girl, hee." Hengshan's eyes widened after hearing this, and he instantly understood Igarashi Amano's purpose, but just when he was about to use the technique to escape, he found that he was hanging in the air, and was clamped tightly by the tree behind him and Igarashi Amano's legs, unable to touch the ground. He began to panic, no longer as arrogant as before, and began to beg, "No! No, don't, ah." Unfortunately, his throat was blocked so he couldn't make any sound. Igarashi Tianyi exhaled a breath of foul air, his muscles bulged, the surging flames on his body danced wildly, and he pulled his arms hard. Break it for me. Please, don't. Puff. Under Hengshan's desperate gaze, his arm was torn off abruptly, and the piercing pain made his face turn pale. Here, I'll give it back to you. The chains fell away. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the arm in his hand that was bleeding, and threw it to Hung Shan with some disgust. Hung Shan knelt on the ground with a pale face, his eyes filled with hideous bloodshot, staring at the broken arm mixed in the mud, unable to keep his mind anymore. Bastard! I want you to die! Ah! He covered the bleeding wound with his hand and let out a heart-wrenching roar. Hung Shan stomped on the ground, and the ground within a radius of dozens of meters under his feet shattered directly. Countless cracks formed the shape of a spider web, and then countless rock spikes shot out one after another and flew into the air, stabbing towards Igarashi Tianyi. Oh? A counterattack before death? Well, let's stop here, I've almost adapted to my abilities. Igarashi Tianyi put his hands in his pockets and said with narrowed eyes. He took a deep breath, stretched out his hands, and bent his body slightly. The power of fire began to condense and compress under his feet. This repeated, and even wisps of white smoke began to rise from the ground. Hung Shan, who had lost his mind, saw this and stopped thinking. He directly controlled the rock spikes to pierce quickly. It's over. Bastard! Swoosh! 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 Several rock spikes pierced downwards like lightning. Ha! Just when the spike was only a few millimeters away from Igarashi Tianyi's eyes, a wave surged out of his body, and everything around him seemed to have stopped in time, and was frozen in place. Igarashi Tianyi opened his eyes, and a wisp of white smoke came out of his mouth. The moment the earth roared, he also disappeared from the spot, leaving only the still burning flames, and a broken arm that suddenly appeared? Whoosh! The spike did not pierce Igarashi Tenai as Hung Shan wished, but pierced the ground and the broken arm. But Hung Shan did not see these, because his sight was blocked by a ghost-like figure. Yeah, it's time to end, a cold voice sounded. Hung Shan looked at Igarashi Tenha who suddenly appeared in front of him, and his brain went into a state of panic. Before he could speak, a dazzling white light completely enveloped him. The poem Meteor. Maximum power. Boom. 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 The palm on Heng Shan's chest instantly burst into a huge flame, and a burst of white light shone, as if to devour everything in the world, and completely obliterated Hung Shan and the forest dozens of miles behind him. A dark smoke rose up, surrounding the whole area. The black fog retreated, and the figure of Igarashi Tianyi also appeared. At this time, the flames and winged feather mask on his body had disappeared, and only a pair of torn pants were left on his body to cover his last stubbornness. Is this the power of horse? Unexpectedly good. In the past few days, he has eaten all the cursed spirits within the dozens of miles of Kitano village. With the blessing of Aoki, who is a first-level sorcerer, he has unlocked the power of horse. I thought that horse would be like pawn, just simply strengthening the 5 senses and strength, but I didn't expect it to be a skill. What a pleasant surprise! Ability explanation. Edict. The extended technique of Dao Yuan Wu is easy to understand in principle. Simply put, it can be understood as an ability starter, which uses Edict to activate the power contained in each chess piece. Of course, even if you don't use Edict, you can still activate the technique in the chess piece, but that will greatly increase the pre-swing time of the technique release, which is the so-called pre-swing. However, after the intervention of Edict, the tedious process of releasing the technique is replaced by it. You only need to mobilize the magic power and think about it. As for the ability of horse, it is to compress time within a radius of 5 miles centered on Igarashi Amanoha, and perform replacement. The first is time compression. The principle is to squeeze the time within a radius of 5 miles, force yourself out of this time node, and appear in the world 1 second later, thereby obtaining nearly 1 second of nothingness, that is, invincibility, and finally replacement. It can be understood as an unjust game within a range of 5 miles, and with 1 second of invincibility. No CD, moderate consumption of magic power. Back to the topic, after releasing this attack, Igarashi Tianyi was already out of breath. He used up his last bit of strength to instantly move to Sato, who was still in a daze, and knocked him out with a knife. After doing all this, he fell directly to the ground, looking at the blue sky and gasping for breath. Hey! 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 Damn, it feels like my body is drained. I should have known not to use so much magic power. What a waste! However, if I kill someone like Hung Shan who has a full cursed power value, I should be able to gain a lot of cursed power from him. Phew, it's not a waste of effort, hee. Half an hour later, in the sun, Igarashi Tianyi, who had almost recovered his physical strength, slowly stood up, stretched his muscles lazily, and made a crisp sound of frying beans. It's almost time to earn money for the plane ticket. As soon as he finished speaking, Igarashi Tianyi pulled Sato, who was still unconscious, to his side. Then he stretched out a hand, and a flame ignited in his hand. Under his control, the flame began to compress until it formed a round bead the size of a palm. Igarashi Tianyi played with the bead for a while, and then placed it on Sato's forehead. The next second, the bead began to melt like a drop of water and completely merged into Sato's head. This power should be enough. Sato's body trembled, and then she slowly opened her eyes. Just as she looked around in confusion, a voice woke her up completely. What's the matter? You seem to be sleeping comfortably like this. Sato turned around and saw the handsome face of Igarashi Amano. Countless fragments popped into her mind at once. The last picture was the scene of Hung Shan Mountain reduced to ashes. The fear of death instantly enveloped her. Her face turned pale and her body trembled uncontrollably. Without hesitation, she knelt down immediately and began to kowtow vigorously. Her face was full of tears and her heart almost collapsed. She kept muttering in her mouth, Igarashi Amano, I know I was wrong, I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong, please forgive me, I know I was wrong. Igarashi Amano looked at Sato like this, squatted down, looked at her and shook his head. You just know that you are going to die. Chapter 20. Igarashi Tianyi knocked Sato unconscious with a knife again. He raised his right hand and a shackle emerged from his palm, tying Sato up. He then picked up the unconscious Sato and jumped away. Not long after, he landed on the top of a tall tree. He looked into the distance and was suddenly stunned. It was noon at this time. The warm spring sun shone directly on the ground, making the mountains and rivers bright. The surging spring tide of the Koyi River overflowed the riverbed. The water was gurgling and rolling. When it was illuminated by the sun, it sparkled like rolling thousands of silver beads and gold grains. Summer, afternoon, sunshine, and flowing water are all synonymous with beauty and warmth, and now they all appeared in front of Igarashi Tianyi. The summer stripes are already densely green, and the red vase is bright and fresh. It's really nice. Igarashi Tianyi sighed from the heart. He jumped down and stopped by a river. The clear river water reflected the boy. Ah, if I hadn't taken a picture, I would have almost forgotten that I'm only 10 years old. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the handsome boy on the river. Now at the age of 10, he is more than 1.5 meters tall, with a good body proportion and a flawless face. Even child stars can't compare with him. Tisk tisk, this little face is almost as good as my previous life. Igarashi Amano boasted, and then jumped into the river, but the strange thing was that he did not fall into the water, but stood upright on the water, and ripples appeared on the water. Without pausing, he continued to run into the distance. Time flew by, and Igarashi Amano ran tirelessly for about an hour, and finally stopped on a big tree. He squinted his eyes at the small village with white smoke coming out of the chimney in front of him, compared it with the memory in his mind, and finally came to the conclusion, this is it, my good village chief, he runs pretty fast. Whoosh! Igarashi Amano appeared in a yard. He looked at the various women's clothes hanging horizontally in the yard, and black lines appeared on his forehead. He was speechless in his heart. Can't this guy do anything else besides women? Hey, who are you from? Don't you know you are not allowed to come in here? Who let you in? Go play somewhere else. Igarashi Amano laughed at the arrogant voice behind him, then he turned his head slowly, looked at the village chief and said with a teasing look on his face, hey, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you forgot about me so quickly. I walked a long way to find you, village chief. Plop. The village chief collapsed to the ground after seeing who was coming. His brain was dominated by fear, fearing that his head would be blown up by Igarashi Amano in the next second. After all, he really liked to do this. 5. Igarashi Amano. Grandpa is here. The village chief would recall the scene of Igarashi Amano's brutal killing, and he immediately knelt down, wailing with snot and tears, Master Igarashi, please let me go, I really didn't mean it at the time, I beg you, Wivu. Master, Master. Stop, 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 why are you like this? Stop howling. I came to you to make a deal with you. If the reward you offer can satisfy me, I will let you go. Igarashi Tianyi interrupted his spell and said quickly. The village chief was stunned. What did Igarashi Amanoha just say? Not kill himself? He suddenly became excited and said quickly, Lord Igarashi, whatever it is, just tell me. As long as I can do it, I will do my best. Igarashi Amanoha threw Sato, who was tied tightly behind him, to the ground, removed the chains and said, don't you like to buy? Well, I'll sell you one too. After seeing Sato's face, the village chief was stunned on the spot, his face full of shock, but he quickly came back to his senses, replaced by a face full of excitement and evil desire. This was the person he dreamed of playing with, but now he got her easily, how could he stay calm? Sir, please name a price. Village chief suppressed his emotions and said to Igarashi Tianyi. 1 million yen, Igarashi Tianyi said. How much? Village chief yelled out loud and was about to curse, but after seeing who said it, he held back his words. He could only whisper, Sir, even if I sold myself, I still don't have 1 million yen. So how much do you have? I only have 50,000 yen left on me now, and I've spent all my money, sir. I'm not lying to you. Igarashi Tianyi said awkwardly, okay then. The village chief was relieved immediately after hearing Igarashi Tianyi's next words, but he was dumbfounded. All right then, 500,000 is 500,000, go get the money. Hey? Sir, I just said 50,000, not 50, the village chief was a little confused and hurriedly explained. Boom! A ball of scorching fire suddenly ignited in the palm of Igarashi Tianyi's hand. He looked at the village chief impatiently and said, "How much is it?" 500,000 yen. Go get the money. Hi. After a while, the village chief ran out of the house trembling with a suitcase. Looking at the painful expression on his face, you can tell that he is in pain at the moment. Igarashi Tianyi took the suitcase, weighed it, nodded with satisfaction, and then he said to the village chief who was groping Sato's body, "There is one more request. Lord Igarashi, I really have no money, really, if you don't believe me, go and search for it yourself." The village chief was immediately scared when he heard the word request. It's not about money, it's about something else. I hope Sato can be as happy as possible here with you, you know. The village chief immediately understood what he meant and laughed, as evil as he could be. Don't worry about that, I will definitely let her experience what real happiness is, hee hee. Yet. Igarashi Tianyi responded, picked up the money and disappeared. In the evening, in a taxi on a highway in Shibuya, Tokyo, Igarashi Tianyi, wearing a black children's clothing, was staring at the night view outside the window in a daze. Beep. Beep. At this moment, a sound came from the children's watch on his wrist. It is now 8 p.m. on August 23, Tokyo time. Igarashi Tianyi's forehead was black. Damn, he didn't even need to look at the store to know where this thing was made. It's really everywhere. Igarashi Tianyi retracted his gaze towards the window and thought to himself, it's 8 o'clock, we can start. Snap. Igarashi Tianyi turned around and snapped his fingers in the direction behind him. Chapter 21. Bang. At 7:50 Tokyo time, in a village not far from Kitano village, a shrill roar was heard from a house. Ah, get out of here, do you want to die, you idiot? I come from the Sato family, which is not weaker than the three major families. I am the eldest daughter of the Sato family. Can you not treat me like this? You can't, I'm going to kill you, Haha, you bitch, what are the 3 starter Pokemon? I think you have seen too many Pokemon. What about the 3 starter Pokemon? Why don't you say you are Satoshi? No, get out of here, Tokyo time 7:52. In the house, under the ambiguous light, a bloated middle-aged man covered his waist and climbed out of the bed panting. He sat on the bed, lit a cigarette and started smoking. His face was flushed and he seemed very satisfied. Beside him was a woman with fair skin and a plump figure. At this time, she had a dull expression, unkempt hair and many wounds and bite marks on her fair cheeks and skin. She kept muttering, "Kill me, kill me, kill me." Tokyo time 7:53 minutes and 36 seconds. The man who had finished smoking half a cigarette extinguished the cigarette butt, then turned around, grabbed the woman's ankle, and dragged her to his side roughly. "Bitch, keep going, I spent all my fortune to buy you, how can just a few times be enough? I'm going to be a slut tonight." Tokyo time 7 hours 54 minutes and 50 seconds. The dull-looking woman did not resist, she was like a doll, lifeless. I know this has been criticized by many readers, but there is really no other way. My first version could not pass and was not allowed to be published, so this is the best I can do. I'm really sorry. What, bitch, are you excited too? Haha, you're getting hot. No, why are you so hot? Under the dim light, the man finally saw Sato's expression. Her eyes and mouth were wide open, and there was even a hint of fire. It was only now that he finally understood why Igarashi Tianyi didn't kill him. Damn it, I've been fooled around. Damn it, damn it, damn it, no, I can't die, I can't die. His heart was instantly filled with fear. Just as he was about to put on his shoes and run away, a strange feeling suddenly appeared in his mind. Sato is delicious. No, what the hell, no. Don't, it's not me. His face was distorted, and his hands and feet began to move uncontrollably. The same thing happened to Sato on the opposite side. The two moved towards each other strangely, using both hands and feet. The village chief looked at Sato walking away with drool hanging from the corners of his mouth. A chill spread from the bottom of his heart. No. Don't do it. Snap. Ah, get out, you lunatic, ah, get out, Ah, get out! Get out! The two of them wailed and devoured each other. Their eyes trembled as they stared at each other. They knew exactly what was going on. Igarashi Amano didn't let them go. He chose the cruelest method and felt the pain of his skin being torn off while awake. A watch on the cabinet nearby rang. Tokyo time 7 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Beep. Beep. It was 8 p.m. on August 23, Tokyo time. The two men, with only bones left in their chests, used their last bit of strength to look. Unfortunately, they saw nothing but a blinding flash of white light. It is August 23, Tokyo time. Boom. 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 A violent explosion rose up, and billowing flames and dark smoke spread out. The vast gusts of air spread out in circles in all directions, and the houses in the whole village were instantly blown to pieces. The scene changed to Shibuya, Tokyo. Igarashi Ame was standing on an overpass, staring at the bustling street scene below in a daze. Night fell. In the bustling Shibuya, the lights were bright and the neon lights were flashing. On the crisscrossing streets, the street lights were as bright as day. Shops lined the streets and people were surging. Cars were speeding past, and the bright lights made the road surface clearly visible. However, compared to the road surface, many passers-by had a level 4 cursed spirit hanging on their bodies. Just seeing this for a moment was more than he had seen in the previous 10 years. Is this the legendary Shibuya stage? A cool breeze blew, pulling him back to reality. He rubbed his temple and glanced at the watch on his wrist. Tokyo time 8:05. With a flick of his finger, a chess piece with the word Ziu engraved on it appeared in his hand. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the chess piece in his hand and said to himself, "Ching, no, brother, it's all over. Don't worry, I'm so smart and so strong, nothing will happen to me. He won't die with the life you gave me." Tick-tock. A tear fell on the surface of the chess piece. Igarashi Tianyi was stunned. He reached out and touched his eye sockets. "Brother, someone is crying for your death. Next, I will go to Hwaju and Spain to study, become stronger and stronger, and exorcise all the cursed spirits in this world. Please protect me, brother." Igarashi Tianyi wiped his tears, put on his hat, and walked away. When he reached the end of the overpass, he looked back and took a deep look, and said in his heart, "Goodbye, Tokyo, it may take a long time to see you next time. Time is uncountable, and the ancients are not as good as they used to be." In the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. April 3, 2006, Malaga, Spain, at the Rose Garden Stadium. A group of beautiful girls wearing Malaga jerseys are staring at a black-haired man wearing sunglasses. In the sun, a tall and strong young man is sitting on the periphery of the stadium with his legs crossed, watching the game lazily. In the hot sun, a drop of sweat flows down his deep jawline and drips on the black sweatshirt that is tightly stretched by muscles. He looks up at the scorching sun in the sky. A helpless smile, coupled with that handsome face, is extremely aesthetic and impactful. The girls cheered. "Oi, Tianyi, hey, Tianyi, why are you picking up girls here again?" Just then, a black man who was even more muscular than Tianyi Igarashi sat next to him and spoke in fluent Spanish. Tianyi Igarashi crossed his arms, yawned and said impatiently, "If I don't pick up girls, how can I pick you up?" The black man shook his head, sat down next to Tianyi Igarashi, looked at the fierce game below and said, "How did the game go? I bet 200 euros on Malaga to win." "How was the game?" "I bet 200 euros on Malaga to win, dot." Igarashi Amano smiled and took off his sunglasses. "It's 2:2 now, but in no more than 5 minutes, Malaga will be defeated." He pointed at a man on the field with his sunglasses and said, "That guy is Malaga's newly signed striker. He wanted to show off so much that he made a lot of useless runs. Now he is in a spent force and no longer has the ability to continue to run at a high frequency. There are still 10 minutes left, and the opponent will not miss this opportunity." After hearing this, the black man punched the iron railing next to him, and a dent was directly smashed on the sturdy iron railing. As if he was still not satisfied, he cursed angrily, "Fuck, this bastard, I worked hard to earn this 200 euros, and he took it away from me. I must beat him up." Igarashi Tianyi laughed, "What a pity, I bought an away win, and I won again this time, ha ha ha, let's go, don't watch it, there is still a level 1 curse waiting for us to exorcise. I will go back to Japan after this job, cherish this last chance to win without doing anything." After saying that, he patted the black man's head and got up and left. Chapter 22. The black man was startled when he saw Igarashi Amano leaving, and quickly chased after him and began to ask, "Kei kabata desu? Vas volvera Japan? What did you just say? Are you going back to Japan?" "Ah, yes, something interesting is about to happen, it's time to go back and join in the fun." Igarashi Tianyi yawned again and said in a depressed tone. "Okay." The black man said. The two walked to the side of the road, opened the back door of a Maybach and got in. "Sir, your student ID has been processed for you." The driver in the front row handed over a card respectfully. Before Igarashi Yamaha could make any move, the black man next to him took it, looked at the small card in his hand, and said word by word in broken Japanese, "Tokyo. Kyoto Ritsu Jutsu. Technical College Student ID, Student Number 100,006, age 16 years old. Damn, every time I see your age, it feels incredible. You are only 16 years old. It's really strange. Name, Igarashi Amanoha, and..." But when he read the last word, he exclaimed, "Level 1, Level 1. Hearing the black man's loud voice, Igarashi Tianyi pressed his hands and signaled him to be quiet. But the black man ignored him and continued to say in surprise, "How can you, who has never been to school, directly reach Level 1? There is no need for assessment. Did you donate 2 teaching buildings to them? You know shit. In the past few years, I have independently exorcised more Level 1 cursed spirits than you have ever seen. It would be strange if I was not rated as Level 1. After saying this, Igarashi Tianyi stopped paying attention to the black man, but found a comfortable posture, folded his arms across his chest, closed his eyes and fell asleep. The driver in the front row also spoke at this time. The mission this time is to go to the southern waters for investigation. According to intelligence, this cursed spirit has reached the level of Level 1. Of course, it may be stronger. Just now when the two of you were watching the game, it is very likely that some fisherman had died." The black man laughed out loud when he heard the last sentence of the driver. "I say, Mr. Amon, there is no need to say the last 2 sentences. Do you think Tianyi will care about these things? After all, in his eyes, humans without cursed power are just monkeys, ha 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 ha." Mr. Amon seemed to have gotten used to it and didn't say anything. Driving and intelligence management were his jobs. Although he couldn't understand why his boss was so indifferent to humans without magical powers, he still had to say something. The vehicle had been driving for about 10 minutes and was about to reach the destination when the drowsy Igarashi Amano spoke up in the back seat. "Stop in front. I have something important to do. Thad goes first. I'll be there soon." "Okay, sir." The black man, sad, turned to look at Igarashi Amano, and said in disbelief, "Eh? That's a first-level cursed spirit. I'll die if I go alone, Amano. We're close friends since we were in Hwaju. Can you really bear to watch me go and die?" Sad, whose real name is Hamza Sad, is 23 years old, a Moroccan and a second-level sorcerer. He met Igarashi Amano in Hwaju Yangcheng in 2002. Since both of them are sorcerers, they often go out together to exorcise cursed spirits, and their relationship has become close. Later, when Igarashi Amano went to Spain, he followed her and even started his own family here. "Don't worry, you'll be fine. Stop here." "Okay, sir." Igarashi Tianyi got off the car and lit a cigarette. He walked straight into a movie theater until the car drove away. "Hello, give me a ticket for Blood Diamond, a bottle of Coke and a bucket of popcorn." Igarashi Yamaha took out a few euros from his pocket and handed them to the counter lady. The counter lady's eyes lit up when she saw Igarashi Yamaha, and she said in a choked voice, "Okay sir, please wait a moment." "Sir, here are your movie tickets and popcorn." Igarashi Tianyi picked them up, hummed lightly, and walked inside. However, when he was about to eat the popcorn, he touched a piece of paper. He picked it up and saw that it was a room number 6012. He turned his head to look at the lady at the counter and found that she was also staring at him with a charming face and throwing him a wink from time to time. Seeing this, he knew what was going on. Igarashi Amaya shook his head and smiled distressedly. The note in his hand turned into ashes and disappeared. Then he walked towards the theater without looking back. "A mere pink skeleton actually wanted to disturb me watching the movie, ridiculous." When the movie started, Igarashi Amaya was also concentrating on it and didn't notice the vibrating mobile phone in his pocket. At the same time, on the other side, Amon looked at Igarashi Amaya who was late and sighed helplessly. He is still so willful. There is no way. Mr. Sad, you go and stop him for the time being. If it goes on like this, the cursed spirit will run away. Thid, who was about to cry but had no tears, agreed. He turned over and entered the cordon, and began to look around vigilantly. Seeing this, Amon stretched out a hand, stood in front of his chest, and began to chant from darkness to darkness, all filth and repentance must be removed. As soon as the voice fell. Wow! The sound of flowing water echoed in the air, and something like a curtain slowly covered it from the sky. As the tent fell, the originally calm sea surface instantly began to stir up waves. It's coming. Thad looked around solemnly. If anything went wrong, he would run away immediately. This was his battle plan. Wow! Wow! Waves came up and Thad on the shore was splashed with water. Roar! A terrifying roar spread from all around. Thad stepped back and his fists ignited the cursed flames. Come out, bastard, don't let me find you. Bang! The sea surface exploded instantly, and a cursed spirit similar in size to a human rushed out with several water columns and rushed towards Thad. I told you to come and you really came, damn it! Thad was stunned, and stepped back, then he stepped hard and appeared behind the curse spirit in an instant. Before the curse spirit could react, he kicked it with a whip kick. Thad looked at the curse spirit that he had knocked to the ground, and immediately put on a mask of arrogance. You bastard, let me show you my Hwaja Kung Fu. After saying that, he did not give the curse spirit a chance to breathe, and after making a Wing Chun start, he rushed forward, swung his arms, and the fists that turned into afterimages all fell on the curse spirit, making him scream continuously. Hey, boy, let me show you my loving iron fist, la. Puff. Et. Thad's fist penetrated the curse spirit's skin and stabbed into its body. He suddenly felt something was wrong. Just when he wanted to pull his fist out, he found that his fist seemed to be firmly grasped and could not move at all. At this time, an unclear voice sounded in his ears, and his blood instantly solidified. Arrive, I. Chapter 23. How is it possible, to speak, its special grade? Bang! The cursed spirit punched him in the abdomen, and he immediately felt a sweetness in his throat. Ugh, cough, etc. Bang! Another punch hit him, sending Thad flying. Bang! 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 Thad's body flew backwards and hit a distant building, creating a dense patch of cracks behind him. After being hit, Thad's head crashed, his eyes rolled back, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The curse spirit did not let him go, he turned into a meteor and appeared directly beside Thad, then turned around and kicked Thad into the air again. Whoosh! In an instant, he appeared behind Thad again, holding his hands tightly, and smashed down on Thad's back. Boom! Thad's falling figure created a huge deep pit in the ground, stirring up a gust of sand. The curse spirit walked through a cloud of smoke and came to Thad's side, looking at the unconscious human lying on the ground, and a voice came out of his body. Die! Bar! Then he raised one foot and stepped directly on Sada's head. Snap! Hey! Suddenly, the sound of a lighter being struck came. My friend, you are quite angry. Igarashi Amano said calmly, blowing out a puff of white smoke towards the face of the cursed spirit. The cursed spirit was startled by the man who suddenly appeared, and exerted force on his feet, but found that his feet could not step down at all. He looked down and saw that it was the feet of the man who suddenly appeared that stopped him. The cursed spirit became angry. Human, get out of here! Boom! The overwhelming curse power burst out from his body, spreading wildly in all directions. The sky and the earth suddenly changed color. The world in front of him seemed to suddenly turn scarlet, and the shock from the depths of his soul swept across the entire coast like waves. In the distance, Amon, who was outside the cordon, also felt this sense of oppression. His expression changed, his eyes widened in horror, and his face was full of disbelief. This is special grade. Damn it, how could the intelligence be wrong? It's over. If something happens to Mr. Thad, I will be dead too. What should I do? Damn it, what went wrong? Amon muttered in horror, and his serious face turned pale. Oh, yes, I'm looking for Mr. Igarashi. He searched his pockets hastily, but couldn't find it. Bastard, bastard, where on earth are you? But before he could find his phone, another more profound, majestic, and overbearing aura crushed him. The strong wind blew him to the ground, but he was not angry, but relieved. It's Mr. Igarashi's aura, great, I'm saved. Amon, with a tired face, lay directly on the ground, with a lingering smile on his face, I'm saved, hee hee. On the other side, at the center of the storm, the cursed spirit looked at the smoking man in front of him with fear, and couldn't believe it in his heart, this human. How could it be possible, to have such evil cursed power, is he still a human being, damn it. This feeling is just like Shura. Boom. The aura dissipated. A cigarette was also burned out. Igarashi Tianyi pressed the cigarette butt on the forehead of the cursed spirit and gently extinguished it. He exhaled the last puff of smoke and said lightly. I have to give him an explanation for beating my brother like this, right? Swoosh. The cigarette butt was bounced into the air like a sharp sword, and Igarashi Tianyi gently put his hand on the neck of the cursed spirit. The next second, time froze for a moment. Whoosh. The two of them appeared in the sky in an instant. Before the cursed spirit could come to its senses, Igarashi Tianyi casually threw the cursed spirit downwards, and then he stretched out a palm and aimed it at the cursed spirit. In the sky, behind Igarashi Tianyi, who had one hand in his pocket, a black and white totem-like thing appeared, with a murderous word cannon written on it, and it began to flash continuously. Then I will reward you with a Kamehameha. As soon as the words fell, countless red and blue energy points gathered in his palm, compressing and expanding over and over again, and finally condensed into a huge black energy body, suspended in his palm, emitting a terrifying aura that seemed to swallow up the world. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the cursed spirit below and uttered a few words lightly. He pushed forward with one hand, and the power that was compressed to the extreme burst out with a bang. A black beam of destruction several meters wide pressed towards the cursed spirit below. Its terrifying power made the air around it condense. The cursed spirit's blood flowed backwards, and he used up all his cursed power and raised his hands suddenly. The surging waves behind him seemed to receive the order, forming several tornadoes and rushing towards the beam of destruction. Swinging line strangling. Boom. The beam of destruction collided with the swinging line strangling. In just an instant, several tornadoes were shattered and turned into countless raindrops hitting the ground. The unstoppable SI roared in the sky, and the heat caused the temperature in this area to rise sharply. Dark clouds pressed down, like thunder wandering in the clouds. The cursed spirit looked at the light getting closer and closer, and shouted, No, no, I just learned the language. Boom. The cursed spirit was enveloped by the light, and under this attack, it turned into ashes and disappeared between heaven and earth. The aftermath of the attack fell on the sea surface, causing a wave of waves. The turbulent tsunami rolled up and ruthlessly hit the buildings on the coast. Several buildings were destroyed in an instant. After a few minutes, the waves gradually calmed down. Igarashi Yamaha shook his smoky hand, lit a cigarette and said, If you can grow up to the point where you can open the domain, it would be fine if you could fight me, but you can't even speak clearly, and you're just playing dumb with me, so I didn't even finish watching the movie. After saying that, he controlled his body and landed on the water-stained ground, kicked the lying Thad with his foot, and said nonchalantly, Get up, the mission is over. No sound. The ball you bought won. Thad sat up suddenly, Really? Fake. I guessed it right, you always lie to me. Thad stood up and wrung out his wet clothes, looking at the ruins around him and said, Didn't you say that this move consumes a lot of magic power and you wouldn't use it easily? Why did you use it so casually this time? Igarashi Tianyi scratched his head indifferently and said, Nothing, I suddenly wanted to show off. Thad was stunned, Then the cost of your showing off is really high. You made this place like this, and the high-level magicians in Malaga will not give up. You'd better be prepared for a big loss. Igarashi Tianyi scratched his ears and said in confusion, What does the matter of your high-level magicians in Malaga have to do with me, a magician in Tokyo? Thad was dumbfounded and said in a daze, Wait, you're not going to run away, are you? Igarashi Tianyi laughed, touched Thad's bald head and said, You're so smart. As he said that, he raised his wrist, looked at the familiar phone watch and said, The plane will take off in 20 minutes. What? They? Confused Thad spoke directly in Japanese, If you fucking leave, then this is my fault. Ha 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 ha, bye. Whoosh. Igarashi Tanha, get the hell out of here. Chapter 24. In the early morning, the breeze was blowing gently, and the towering Tokyo Tower was shining brightly under the sunlight. April 5, 2006, Tokyo. In an office of Tokyo Metropolitan College of Jujutsu. The warm sunlight, shining through the dense leaves, became golden spots, imprinted on the desk. A man with a righteous face was looking at the dozens of pages of information on the desk in distress. Alas, why is there another problem teenager? New student information. Name, Igarashi Amanoha. Age, 16. Height, 1.86 meters. Place of birth, unknown. How to enter technical college, self-recommendation. Technique de Yuanwu. Currently known abilities, can manipulate a purple-white flame at will, with extremely high temperature, space jump similar to teleportation, unknown high-strength cursed force cannon, the cursed force is strong and bottomless, unknown clone ability, only 2 clones have been found so far, and the strength is initially judged to be 90% of the original body. Initial level rating, special. Detailed information, born in Japan in 1990, he did not appear in society until 2000. It is unknown where he was and what he did in the past 10 years. He appeared at Tokyo Narita Airport on August 17, 2000, and went to Huaji Yangcheng with a fake identity. He went to Malaga, Spain in 2004. In September of the same year, he went to a local magic gang alone and wiped them out, leaving no one alive. In November of the same year, the top leaders of Malaga, Spain sent assassins to snipe Igarashi Amano, but he was killed in the end. At the end of November of the same year, Igarashi Amano used the magic cannon at noon to fiercely attack the Malaga magic high-rise building, resulting in 4 deaths and 11 injuries, and made a bold statement to the entire Malaga top leaders, "Right now, I will give you a chance to challenge me, don't worry, I will never use my full strength." This move completely broke the international convention, and Igarashi Amano became the only magician who directly challenged the magic high level in 100 years. In December of the same year, the angry Malaga high-level officials sent the only special grade sorcerer in Malaga, Juan Guerrero Santavala, and 5 level 1 sorcerers to encircle and suppress Igarashi Amano. The situation of the battle has been blocked by the local high-level officials, and no one knows what happened except the parties involved. There is no sympathy for people without cursed power, but they are extremely bloodthirsty towards cursed spirits. Kyoto high-level officials suggested, obliterate. Summary, a genius boy who appears once in a century, he has no shortcomings except in his field, with a perverse personality, but extremely rational. Available. Yaemo Gendeo sighed, took off his sunglasses, rubbed his eyes vigorously, got up and walked out. In the same corridor, in the second-grade classroom with a house number, unlike other classrooms, there are only a few scattered tables here and there are only 3 people. "Hey, Wu, didn't you say that a new classmate would come today? Why hasn't he come yet?" A handsome boy with a black bun, a strange-looking fringe on his forehead, and earrings on his ears said. "Ah, who knows, maybe he was afraid to face me directly, so he ran away." The young man called Satoru said arrogantly while lazily lying on the table. He wore a pair of round-frame sunglasses, but what was more eye-catching was his holy-looking white hair. Geto Summer shook his head speechlessly, then turned his gaze to the cute girl who was holding a lollipop in her mouth and rapidly tapping her phone in her hand. "Glass, aren't you curious about who is coming? He can be directly inserted into the second grade, maybe he is some incredible guy from the 3 major families." Before Glass could speak, Gojo Satoru on the side laughed, "Ha ha ha ha, gee, what are you talking about? Isn't the most incredible person in the entire 3 major families right in front of you? As for those other scum, just forget it." Glass nodded in agreement. "That's right, we all know those guys from the 3 families. They have always disliked our Kyoto High School, let alone joining us. What's more, Mr. Yamath will not agree to let them in casually. He hates those guys the most." After saying this, Glass, who was also curious about the new classmates, picked up her phone and sent an email. "Senior Guji, do you know anything about the sudden transfer student here?" Ding! After a few seconds, the phone rang with a notification sound of receiving an email. "I only know that guy is very strong, I don't know much about other things, but Principal Lian Temple doesn't seem to like your new classmate that much. Every time he mentions him, his face is gloomy, ha ha ha." Nitsuko thought about the message, then glanced at Gojo Satoru who was shaking his head, and replied with some evil humor. Very strong? Is he stronger than Wu? Looking forward to JPG. Ding. That would be the best thing to do. Let that bastard know that there are always people who are better than you. Angry page. Ah, Utah him senpai is really resentful of Wu. Snickering J page. Dot. Ding. Of course, that bastard who always calls people weak, I get angry when I mention him, angry page. Dot. Bang. Just when she was chatting animatedly, the sound of the classroom door being opened was heard. Yemo Gendeo walked into the classroom, clapped his hands, and said loudly, "Okay, everyone, be quiet. I believe you have already heard about the news about the arrival of new students. Then, let us welcome the new students." After that, he swung his hand and pointed to the classroom door, and the three of them looked in the direction of his palm. A quiet. The three of them were dumbfounded, and all looked at Yega Masamichi, who was also a little confused at this time. "What's going on? You just agreed to come in, why don't you come in?" Bang! The sound of the door being opened rang out, and the four of them looked at the same time, only to find that the person who came in was not a new classmate, but Mr. Ijishi, who was panting. "Mr. Yega, Igarashi said he forgot to take something and needs to go get it." Ijishi said, panting. Well, several people were dumbfounded. This bastard, yet. Mo Zhang Dao's forehead veins jumped unconsciously, and he suppressed his anger and said, "Did he say when he would be back?" Hearing Yemo's question, he seemed to remember something. Yi Dizzy slapped his thigh, took out an old-fashioned kerosene lighter with a special mark from his pocket, handed it to Yemo Zhang Dao and said, "He asked you to help light it." Yemo Zhang Dao took a deep breath, calmed the suppressed anger in his heart, took the lighter, looked around in his palm, then opened the lid and started to light it. The three people below were also confused. This new classmate didn't look like a serious person. Click. The space froze for a moment, and several people felt a flash in front of their eyes. A tall figure with a cigarette in his mouth and a dying cursed spirit in his hand appeared in the classroom in an instant. Igarashi Tianyi used the fire made by Yemo Zhang Dao to light the cigarette, took a deep breath and exhaled a wisp of white smoke. Chapter 25. Then, in the confusion of everyone, he walked up to Geto Suguru first, handed the dying cursed spirit to him, and said, "A greeting gift. Except that it can't expand its domain, it is no different from a special grade cursed spirit." Then he walked up to Gojo Satoru, put down the dessert in his other hand and said, "I'll give you two gifts. One is a dessert, and the other is me, a classmate who is stronger than you." However, Gojo Satoru didn't seem to hear his second sentence. His eyes were fixed on the dessert in the handbag. Igarashi Amano didn't care about this. Sooner or later, they would have a fight. Finally, he walked up to Whistle, took out a cigarette from his armpit and handed it to her, saying, "Try it. It's my favorite cigarette. It smells good." After doing all this, he took out two checks from his pocket, handed them to Ijishi and Yagamasamichi, and said, "I don't know what you two like. There are 5 million euros in it. It's not a lot. Take it." "Well. Ichiki, what new classmate? This is obviously my father." Igarashi Amaha stood on the podium and said calmly, "Hello, everyone. My name is Igarashi Amaha. Next, I am your new classmate. Please take care of me. In addition, I have a question for you, as..." He spoke, he paused, and the violent curse power in his body began to spread outward uncontrollably. He said in a neutral tone, "Where is the doghouse of the Tokyo Jujutsu high-level officials? I really want to meet them." Time goes back to the evening of the previous day. 10,000 meters above the sky, in a first-class cabin bound for Tokyo, Japan, Igarashi Tianji said to Amon beside him in a cold tone, "Have you investigated it clearly? Which part of the intelligence is wrong?" Hearing this question, Amon, who was originally a little drowsy, instantly perked up. He patted his cheek, took out the laptop he carried with him, connected to the random Wi-Fi in the first-class cabin, opened a page and said to Igarashi Tianji beside him, "Sir, according to my investigation, the problem lies here. This guy is called David Karui, a professional intelligence investigator, and has been serving us. But just half a year ago, the day after you first said you would return to Japan, an overseas account began contacting him. According to IP location tracking, the person who contacted David is now in Tokyo, Japan, and his identity is still being tracked. If nothing unexpected happens, he is a high-ranking sorcerer in Tokyo, and they don't seem to want you to return to Japan. Jing. I see. Thanks for the hard work. You are out of touch. Inside the Jujutsu High School, Yega Masamichi sighed heavily as he watched Igarashi Amiji calm down. What the hell is going on? To offend someone so far away in Spain, you are really amazing, senior executives. Igarashi Ame, I understand your feelings, but the high-ranking sorcerers in Kyoto are not as simple as you think. Once you make a move, you will be hunted down by sorcerers all over Japan. Just call me Tianzi. Well, Tianzi, I still hope you. Yaemo Zhengdao hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by Gojo Satoru, who had just finished eating dessert. Hey, is Tianju going to kill a bunch of old oranges? I want to go too, I want to go too. Gojo Satoru. That inappropriate tone directly ignited Yagamasamichi, and he raised the lighter in his hand and threw it directly. Bang! But he was caught by Gojo Satoru. He turned around and looked at Igarashi Ame and said seriously, Yagama teacher is right, it is not good to make things too awkward with them before you comprehend the domain. Igarashi shook his head and said, it won't be too awkward, I'm not stupid. Hearing this, Yagamasamichi and Ijishi both breathed a sigh of relief. If it's just a meeting, it's fine, you came at the right time. The Kyoto Sisters Exchange meeting will be held next week, and before that all of us will go to the top management, so you don't have to go alone, everyone will accompany you. As soon as these words came out, Igarashi Amano immediately laughed. The high-level sorcerers should be warned, but they don't want to just let it go after being disgusted. As for what Yaemo Zhengdao said about being hunted down by sorcerers all over Japan? Haha, as long as the high-level sorcerers still have a little bit of brains, they won't do that. After all, he is not Geto Suguru in the original work, who has such a good heart. Ding-ling-ling. Ding-ling-ling. Just when Yaemo was about to say something else, the phone in his pocket rang. Yaemo picked it up and looked at it. His expression changed for a moment, and then he walked out. As for the check in his hand, he had already thought of how to reinforce the school's facilities. Seeing that the moth had left, Ichiki did not stay any longer. After thanking Igarashi Amano excitedly, he took the check and went to the forest shop happily. Gojo Satoru, Geto Suguru, Naoko, and other 4 people including Igarashi Amano were left staring at each other. After a while, Gojo Satoru and Naoko were fine, one was playing with his mobile phone and the other was staring at the sky in a daze, but Geto Suguru was a little embarrassed. He looked at the motionless cursed spirit under his feet and said, Amano, how did you know that my technique is the cursed spirit manipulation technique? It would be strange if you didn't know. One of you is a 6-eyed man that appears once every 100 years in the Gojo family, one is an alien that can subdue cursed spirits, and the last one is a treasure in the world of curses who is born with the ability to reverse spells. Igarashi. Tianyi said lazily, leaning on his head. Although what you said is true, it is not good to call someone a weirdo in front of him. Xiao. Ji narrowed his fox eyes and said. Oh my, so you are here. I'm so sorry. Igarashi Tianyi covered his mouth with one hand and said in surprise. Xiaoju's mouth twitched, no matter what, I still have to thank you. The power of this cursed spirit is not weak. You can make it look like this without any harm. I am a little curious about your origins. You can easily give away 1 million euros, and I just heard you say to Wu that you are stronger than him, is that true? As soon as these words came out, Gojo Wu and Nishiko turned their eyes to him at the same time. Me? I'm just an ordinary person who likes to play chess. Ask for everything, grateful. Chapter 26. In a building near Tokyo Tower in Tokyo, Japan, a dim light flickered next to a round conference table on the top floor. Several figures were looming under the light. The guy named Igarashi is back. I overlooked it. I didn't expect that guy to be so strong. Humph, I didn't expect that. There are so many things you didn't expect. You said it so easily. Now that he has joined the Tokyo Jujutsu High School, it will be even more difficult to take action. Yes, the Gojo family's Rokugan is also there. And that guy Yaemo Zhengdao actually dared to ignore our orders. Let's not talk about these meaningless things for now. There will be an exchange meeting between the 2 schools next month. We will meet with that guy and try to win him over. If he doesn't appreciate it, then we'll just kill him, Sato. What do you think? April 6, 2006, 926, Sunny. In the second-year classroom of Tokyo Jujutsu High School. Yaemo Zhengdao looked at the empty classroom and held his forehead weakly, these bastards. In the student dormitory, Gojo Satoru and Igarashi Amano, each with an afro, are piking with game controllers. Are you a fool, Wu? Dodge sideways. Kick, what are you looking at? Tianyi is about to use his ultimate move, run. You are such a loser that you can't even be beaten like this. KO. Gojo Satoru looked at the huge KO word on the TV, and was furious. He turned around and pounced on Geto Suguru behind him, grabbed his bun and started cursing, asshole, if you hadn't been yelling at me all the time, I wouldn't have lost. Then he turned around and looked at Igarashi Amano with a cigarette in his mouth and said, I don't accept it, let's have another round. It was Geto who interfered with me just now, otherwise I would not have lost. Ah, really? I think so too. Igarashi. Tianyi agreed with a pair of dead fish eyes. These two bastards didn't sleep in the morning and insisted on dragging him to play King of Fighters, saying that they wanted to decide who was the boss. But the key is that these two people are so bad that they refuse to accept the loss and try again, they are disturbed, their fingers are sweating, and the keys of the controller are stuck. These lame excuses have been used countless times. From 7 in the morning until now, he has not won a single game. Bastard Gojo, it's my turn now. You've already lost once. Zyuji crawled out from under Gojo Satoru's body, grabbed his white hair and said. The last one doesn't count. If you hadn't interfered with me, I would have won. You won a shit, 3 of you are dead, but the first person of Tianyi still has half a tube of health left, is your 6th eye blind? Bastard, you dare to scold me, are you looking for death? Pretend to be your sister, I am afraid of you, if you don't agree, let's go out and fight. Come. Come. As for the war between the two, Igarashi Tianyi did not participate. At this time, he was sitting aside, leaning on his chin and drowsy. Bang! Suddenly, a foot in white socks directly hit Igarashi Tianyi's face, waking him up. Gojo Satoru and Geto Zyu, who were fighting in a group, froze in expression. The two looked at each other and smiled awkwardly at Igarashi Tianyi. That, we didn't do it on purpose, ha ha ha. Bang! Bang! 2 figures smashed through the door and flew out. The 2 people lay on the ground in a twisted state and began to blame each other. It's all your fault. You're thrown out now. Hey? It's your foot, not mine. Just as the 2 were about to quarrel again, Naoko came over with a cigarette in her mouth, tapping on her phone and saying without looking up, Teacher Yega asked the 3 of you to go to the playground within 5 minutes. If anyone doesn't arrive, be prepared to be hung on the Tokyo Tower. After hearing this, the 2 of them stood up and rushed out instantly. Naoko glanced at the broken door and walked straight in without thinking much. At the same time, Igarashi Amano, who had just taken a shower, walked out of the bathroom naked. The 2 noticed each other at the same time, staring at each other for a while, and no one screamed. Igarashi Amano didn't care about being naked at all, and said while wiping her head, what's wrong? Naoko's reaction was also very calm, as if the person in front of her was not a man, and she said indifferently, Teacher Yega verbally ordered that you be at the playground within 5 minutes, otherwise you will be hung on the Tokyo Tower. Receive. Glass hummed, glanced down unconsciously, and walked out of the house. It was not until she reached the playground that she breathed a sigh of relief and unconsciously reached out to touch her slightly hot face. Hey, Nizo, did you call Tianyi? I don't want my friend who I just met for a day to be hung on the Tokyo Tower by Mr. Yega. Nizo was startled when her name was called, and she said quickly, I called her. Hearing Nizo's somewhat panicked reply, Gojo Satoru's blue eyes under his sunglasses lit up, and he walked towards Nizo, saying, Nizo, why do I feel your face is a little red? Is it, he. Whoosh. Just when he was about to say something else, Igarashi Amano suddenly appeared, hugged his neck, and whispered in his ear with a fake smile, Woo, that foot just now was yours, right? How is it possible? That is obviously G's, how can it be mine? Gojo. Satoru's face changed, and he pointed at Zyuji who was staring at the sky in a daze and shouted. Zyuji heard that he was tricked by his good brother again, so he went up to argue with him, and the 3 of them started fighting again. And Jaizai, who was tapping on his phone with one hand, was also very excited. Ding! How are your new classmates? When Nitro saw this, she suddenly remembered the scene just now. The heat was everywhere, the beauty was so. No, what is this? However, this guy's body proportions are really perfect, and he must be great for surgery. It's okay. After one day, I have become good friends with Wu and Ji. Ding! Hey? That's it. Another talented boy is about to die. Ha 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 ha, don't worry, his mouth isn't that annoying. Ding! It's okay now, but who knows, after a while, under the influence of those two bastards, I guess everyone will change. But I think Senior Ming Ming will definitely like him. Ding! Is he rich? Let's just say that yesterday he gave each of us a gift. The gifts from Mr. Yega and Mr. Ijishi were 2 checks for 5 million euros. Ding! 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 Ha! 5 million euros per person, that's 10 million, if converted to Japanese yen, that is more than 780 million. Real or fake? Don't mention Ming Ming, anyone would like this. Chapter 27. Ding! 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 Wait, you just said he gave you all gifts, what did he give you? It can't be a luxurious villa. Glass looked at the message sent by the singing girl and smiled helplessly. Unfortunately, it was a cigarette. Ding! The message came very quickly. It took less than 5 seconds to receive the message from the singer. It was obvious that she was shocked. What did you say, a cigarette? Yeah, a cigarette, I don't understand what it means either. P.S. During this period, Nozomi didn't smoke, she had candy in her mouth. Ding! He is really a talent. Who knows? Pa! 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 Yamath Jendeo, who came with 2 unfamiliar faces, clapped his hands at the 3 people who were wrestling in a ball and shouted. All right, all of you, behave yourself and stand still. The 3 of them were startled and stood still. When Gojo Satoru stood up, he secretly kicked Geto Zaiyu and Amano Igarashi, making them angry. Okay. Yaemo Jendeo nodded, took a step back, looked at the 2 people beside him and said, Tianyi, these 2 are first-year students, Hui Yuanxiang and Nanamai Kento, both are second-level sorcerers, and are also very reliable juniors. You will go on missions together in the future. As he said, he pointed to Igarashi Tianyi. This guy is Igarashi Tianyi, he just transferred to the 2nd grade yesterday, he is a first-level sorcerer, but his exact strength is still unknown, and he needs to be tested later. Okay, the introduction is over. The main purpose of calling you here today is to evaluate Tianyi's strength, so that you can make the right choice when going on missions in the future. As a spectator, the first graders can learn about Tianyi's skills and combat habits. Next, Gojo Satoru, and Geto Zaiyu, who of you 2 will be the opponent of Tianyi? Gojo Satoru raised his hand instantly, looking extremely excited. I will beat him up and let him know how powerful I am. Geto Zaiyu smiled, narrowed his eyes and said, since Satoru wants to come, let him come, I have no objection. It's strange that you agreed so quickly. Gojo Satoru said. There's nothing strange about it. I've always been giving in to you, don't you know? Xiaoyuja said softly. Hey! Gojo Satoru, who had a bad temper, rolled up his sleeves and was about to go up and beat someone up. Do I need you to give way to me? Get out of here! Yaemo Jendeo looked at Gojo Satoru, the biggest troublemaker in the team, and roared in a low voice, Gojo Satoru! Get out of here and get to the battlefield right away! Gojo Satoru, who was smart enough to be called, stood up straight, saluted and said, Hi! The group of people walked towards the battlefield in a scattered manner. Xiaoyuja glanced at Gojo Satoru, who was walking very exaggeratedly in front of him, and quietly walked to Igarashi Tianyi and whispered, Gojo Satoru, you're the one who's the best. Tianyi, you must not show mercy later, just use that curse of yours, to hit him hard with 1 shot, no, 2 shots, no, 5 shots, yes, give him 5 shots. Igarashi Tianyi understood, I see, you investigated my information, and I was wondering why you were so happy to let Wu fight me. Haha, you should always fully understand your friends, right? Igarashi Tianyi felt embarrassed when he saw the smirking Xiaoyuja. He hugged Xiaoyuja's shoulders, suppressed the excitement in his heart, and whispered, this is not good. Tisk. Xiaoyuja knocked on Igarashi Tianyi's hand and said sternly, it's okay, just fight. That bastard's technique is a turtle shell, it can't be broken, at most he will be defeated. Besides, even if it is really broken, don't we still have brothers? I will take the blame for you, you just do it. Igarashi Tianyi nodded affirmatively after hearing this. Okay, let's do it. He. After hearing that Igarashi Amanoha agreed, Xiaoyuji couldn't help laughing out loud. Gojo Satoru in front of him twitched his ears, turned his head suspiciously, and found that Igarashi Amanoha and Xiaoyuji were arm in arm with each other and grinning evilly. He paused and shouted at them, hey, you two bastards, are you saying something bad about me? Xiaoyuji heard it and said with a flattering expression, how can that be? We are praising you. The strongest, he. Tisk, it's better to do so, otherwise be careful that I will beat you up after I beat Igarashi Amanoha. Xiaoyuja didn't care and didn't say anything back. Soon, they came to an open area surrounded by dense woods. The ground was overgrown with weeds and it looked like no one had taken care of it for a long time. Yaemo Gendeo led the others to a bench and sat down. He said to Igarashi Amanoha and Gojo Satoru, you can start now. Remember, don't affect us. Hi. The two walked to the center and stared at each other. A gust of wind and sand blew up, as if cheering for the duel between the two. Gojo Satoru put his hands in his pockets, looked at Igarashi Amano with his nose and said, be careful, after all, I am the most. Buzz. A wave of ripples spread outward from Igarashi Tenha. The dead leaves that were blown up by the wind suddenly stopped in mid-air, but returned to normal 2 seconds later. This ability is really incredible. Before he finished speaking, Gojo Satoru suddenly froze in place, and with his suddenly brightened vision, he looked at the empty battlefield in front of him and said. A voice suddenly sounded behind Gojo Satoru. Yeah, I think so too. Igarashi Amanoha behind him responded while playing with Gojo Satoru's black round frame sunglasses. The pupils of the people watching the battle from a distance shrank suddenly. Nanami Kento put down his hands that were clasped around his chest and murmured in disbelief, this, what on earth is going on, teleportation. Yago Masamichi stared at Igarashi Amanoha, shook his head and said no, simple teleportation can't escape Rokugan's tracking, not to mention taking off Rokugan's sunglasses without him noticing. Xiaoyuji took the lead after coming to his senses from the shock. He said in a deep voice, it is the condensation of time, plus the change of position. Time freezes. That's right, at the moment of launching the technique, a wave will radiate within a few miles with Tianyi as the center, condensing all the space and time within the range, and the time is within 3 seconds, the exact time is still unclear. This time Wei Wenxiang was even more shocked. Hey? How can Senior Xiaoyu know Senior Tianyi's ability so well? Jiazai and others were also curious. Xiaoyu. Ji slumped his hands and said, do you really think Tianyi is an unknown person? He is a very famous figure internationally. Even his technique can be known by just asking. Is this possible? Nitras was a little surprised, and then quickly checked on his phone. Interesting. Gojo Satoru, who was a little excited, grinned and swung his fist back. Whoosh! Bang! Igarashi Amano caught Gojo Satoru's punch and said with a slightly apologetic smile, my Satoru, don't blame me. He threw the sunglasses in his hand upwards, and then the space froze again for a moment. When Gojo Satoru regained consciousness, he was already floating in the air. He looked up and saw Igarashi Amano, who was high in the sky with one hand in his pocket, looking at him with a smirk on his face. Edict Si. Chapter 28. Tsukasa. Seeing this, Geto Xiaoyu in the distance immediately became excited. Here it comes, super cursed cannon, my Satoru, welcome the cannon, he. Seeing Geto Xiaoyu like this, Nishiko felt a chill. Is that necessary? On the other side, Gojo Satoru's pupils shrank when he saw this, and he cursed directly, asshole Tianyi, you are fucking sick. Boom. He shook his hands, and a blue vortex began to condense in his hands. The black beam and the blue energy ball collided, making a huge roar. The hurricane caused by the explosion bent all the trees in the distance. Yega Masamichi and others in the distance were also using their magic power to defend themselves. These two guys are too reckless. Boom boom. The explosion is still going on. Gojo Satoru gritted his teeth and tried to cope with it, cursing in his heart, you bastard Tianyi, You just stepped on his face, it's not bad, is it necessary to be like this, bastard? If I can comprehend the reversal of the technique, I will definitely beat you, the bastard smoker, to death. Seeing this, Igarashi Tianyi curled his lips and smiled, the goal has been achieved. His figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Because of his departure, SI only lasted for a few seconds before it completely dissipated, but these few seconds were enough. Whoosh! Tianyi, who suddenly appeared behind Gojo Satoru, said firmly, now you can't use the maximum output Kang and open the limitless at the same time. As soon as the words fell, Igarashi Amano's long legs lashed down fiercely at Gojo Satoru's chest. Bang! Boom! Gojo Satoru, who was kicked away, stabilized his body the moment he hit the ground, and then he exerted force with his feet and rushed forward suddenly. Bang! The two men's fists collided, raising a cloud of dust. Gojo Satoru did not pause, and his body leaned back to the side, and then another punch was stabbed at Igarashi Amano's face. Snap! Igarashi Amano grabbed Satoru's fist with one hand, and sparks began to scatter from his hand. He forcibly moved Satoru's fist away, revealing his serious expression. Satoru, to be honest, facing you before the awakening of the reversal technique, I can really crush you in all aspects. Then the veins on his forehead bulged, and he exhaled a breath of white air from his mouth, shouting loudly, red, owl. Boom! The scorching heat that erupted from Igarashi Amano's body directly sent Gojo Satoru flying. Then he raised his arms, shook them downward, and the whole person turned into a stream of fire and rushed towards Gojo Satoru from the side. Igarashi Amano stretched out his palms and chopped Gojo Satoru's neck directly and fiercely. Bang! A ball of fire shot up into the sky and directly swallowed Gojo Satoru completely. In the distance, Glass, who was fanning himself with one hand and holding a mobile phone in the other, said in a lazy tone, I have found all the information about Amano. What did you say? Xiaoyuja asked curiously. But Nitsuko didn't respond to him, but stared at the phone screen. After a long time, you can see for yourself. Naoko was silent for a while, and handed the phone to Xiaoyuji. Xiaoyuji looked at Naoko strangely, took the phone and looked at the information on it and said word by word, the last descendant of the Japanese noble Igarashi Amano, the only genius who has the opportunity to surpass the 6 eyes in 100 years, the most evil sorcerer in 100 years, and the youngest richest man in 100 years. No, what is going on? How come the richest man is here? Xiaoyuja was confused. Yet Emo Gendao and Nanami Kento and others beside him also looked over curiously. Keep watching. After hearing what Nishiko said, the confused Xiaoyuja looked at his phone and continued, in 2004, during the Beijing Olympics, the 14-year-old Igarashi Tianyi killed 4 first-level Portuguese sorcerers by himself, and fled to Spain surrounded by Portuguese sorcerers. Since then, Igarashi Tianyi's name as a genius has spread throughout Europe. With the rise of Igarashi Amano, everything about him became popular. At the same time, his past growth was exposed, but everything that happened in the middle was shocking. By the end of 2005, the number of ordinary humans who died at his hands was conservatively estimated to be more than 20,000. It's fake, it's fake. Xiaoyuja looked up at Nishiko and murmured. Real? How is it possible? If it is true, he would have been wanted internationally long ago. How could he still be a first-class sorcerer and study here safely? Yamo Masamichi was also in disbelief. He didn't know about this news. The information he received did not contain this. Nitro shook his head, keep reading. Xiaoyuja turned his head stiffly, looked at the phone and continued, this news caused an uproar in the international community, but it was quickly suppressed. The people who investigated this news disappeared overnight and are still missing. On the morning of the second day after the incident, the Aoki Group, with a market value of 100 billion euros, issued a notice in Madrid, Spain, that Mr. Igarashi Amanoha officially became the top decision-maker of the Aoki Group on December 24, 2005. On the afternoon of the same day, Igarashi Amanoha donated 5 billion euros to the local J Party as strategic funds on behalf of the Aoki Group. However, on the second day, the Madrid J Party began to arrest some ordinary people and executed them for various reasons. The number of people was conservatively estimated to be 5,000, which caused a lot of panic in the local area. During this half-year, all the crimes committed by Igarashi Amano were replaced by various reasons. Later, all the sorcerers who tried to investigate the matter died mysteriously due to various unnatural phenomena. Up to this point, the most evil sorcerer Igarashi Amano is still at large. Everyone fell silent. Where did these things come from? Why didn't I find any of them yet? Moth Jendeo asked with a gloomy face. I bought it from Senior Ming Ming for 500 million yen. Shiko said. It seems that the information I got was blocked. Hey, what's going on? Everyone looks so gloomy. Igarashi. Tianyi walked away with a cigarette in his mouth, and Gojo Satoru did the same behind him. Several people raised their heads at the same time, staring at the person who was talking with extremely bad faces. Seeing this, Igarashi Tianyi's smile also faded, replaced by an indifferent look. Come with me, Igarashi Tenha, I have something to ask you. Yet. Mo Zhangdao stood up and walked towards the teaching building. After a few steps, he paused, looked back at everyone and said, You guys come too. What's going on? Why are you all so serious? Gojo Satoru, not knowing the reason, was confused. Xiaoyuja said with an unpleasant expression, We made a mistake. Chapter 29. Half an hour later, in an office. After learning what happened, Gojo Satoru looked extremely unhappy. He looked at Igarashi Amano who was smoking beside him and said in disbelief, All of this was done by you. Igarashi Amano sat on the chair with his legs crossed and said in a calm tone, Yes. Why? They're human lives. There is no reason. If I have to give a reason, it's probably because I'm not happy with them. Igarashi Tianji said casually, playing with the lighter in his hand. Bastard. Gojo. Satoru in the technical high school was obviously not that calm, and he was about to take action. Satoru. Yogai. Masamichi interrupted Gojo Satoru, looked at Igarashi Amano with a bad face and said in a deep voice, Igarashi Amano, I admire your magnanimity, but this does not mean that I will continue to let you stay here. I officially announce that you are expelled from Kyoto Jujutsu High School, and you can go. Igarashi Amano didn't care about it at all. I remember that Jujutsu High School does not have the ability to expel a student who has no problems. Yes, it has this ability, but the conditions seem a bit harsh. You can only expel me after I die. Is that right, Mr. Yaogi? Don't call me teacher, I'm not worthy of it. You're right, the rules of the technical college are like this. You can stay here, but we will find a chance to kill you at any time. Yet. Mo Zhangdao frowned, he didn't understand why Igarashi Tianyi had to stay here, there was nothing here that could attract him. I see. I'm always welcome. Igarashi. Tianyi didn't care about the threat from Yega Jendao. He chuckled and walked out. When he passed by Jayazai, he paused and put his hand in his pocket. The moment he put his hand in. Whoosh. Roar. Puff. Don't move. Igarashi Tianyi was instantly surrounded by everyone, including the cursed corpse of Yega Masamichi, the false cursed spirit of Xiaoyuji, Gojo Satoru's blue, Huiwen Xiang's fist, Nanami Kento's blunt knife, and Naoko's scalpel. Igarashi Amano didn't say a word in the face of the crowd's attack, but calmly pulled his hand out of his pocket, holding something in his hand. Everyone looked carefully and found that it was an exquisite mobile phone pendant with a small purple gem inlaid on it. He placed the mobile phone pendant on the table next to Naoko and said calmly, A welcome gift for you. Naoko was stunned, and before she could say anything, Igarashi Amano continued, Also, you are still a few millimeters away from the heart. Everyone was stunned and didn't understand what Igarashi Amano meant, but when they looked at Naoko, they were stunned. The scalpel that Naoko carried with her had already been inserted into Igarashi Amano's heart. Igarashi Tianyi stretched out a big hand and grabbed the hand of Naoko holding the knife handle. Before Naoko could react, he grabbed Naoko's hand and stabbed it hard. Then he said calmly, This is the only way to really kill the enemy. Do you understand? Then he slapped Naoko's slightly trembling hand away, pulled out the scalpel and threw it on the ground, and walked out. Bang! The blade fell to the ground with a crisp sound, bringing everyone back to their senses. In the afternoon, Gojo Satoru, Geto Xiaoyu, and Naoko sat on a bench. No one spoke. They just sat there quietly. The warm sunlight was filtered by the layers of leaves and turned into a faint, round, gently swaying halo when it fell on them. After an unknown amount of time, Geto Xiaoyu broke the deadlock and said, I always feel like I'm in a dream. We suddenly met, became familiar with each other, and quickly became like this. But Nitsuko, I didn't expect you to really do it. It's really funny that Satoru and I, two first-level sorcerers, are even more indecisive than a non-combatant. Nitsuko's fingers trembled slightly after hearing this, but she didn't say anything and just kept silent. Xiaoyuja didn't get annoyed when he saw that no one paid attention to him. He continued to talk to himself. We have only known each other for 2 days, but we are all sad for him. His personality charm is really strong, hee. Woo, I didn't expect that your 6 eyes would be wrong one day. No, that's not right. I wouldn't have made a mistake. Neither would you, nor would Nitroko, nor would Mr. Yega. I must have missed something. It must be. Gojo Satoru, who had been silent all this time, stood up suddenly and said with certainty. After that, he took out his cell phone and made a call. It's me, Gojo Satoru. Find out all the information about Igarashi Amanoha for me, especially the reasons why he killed people without cursed power. The more detailed the better. Yes, as soon as possible at any cost. After finishing the call, he ignored the two of them and left directly. Xiaoyuja looked at Gojo Satoru's back, feeling a little lonely. Satoru, what exactly do you not want to believe, that information or your own friendship? At the same time, on top of a building, Igarashi Amanoha looked at the hustle and bustle of traffic below and exhaled a puff of smoke. The scene of him and Gojo Satoru playing around with others flashed through his mind. He shook his head and smiled sarcastically. Boring. After smoking a cigarette, he threw the cigarette butt from the roof and immediately lay on the ground. Not long after, he fell into a deep sleep. After an unknown amount of time, the phone watch on his wrist rang, waking him up. Beep. Beep. It is now 4 p.m. on April 6, Tokyo time. Ding ding. Ding ding. It is now 4 p.m. on April 6, Tokyo time. Igarashi Tianyi, who was drowsy, rubbed his head, lit a cigarette in a daze, and muttered lazily, it's already 4 o'clock, what should I do, I am bored. After smoking a cigarette, he patted his cheek and forced himself to turn on the phone. Let's go have a meal first. After saying that, he jumped down from the building. 10 minutes later, Igarashi Tianyi walked aimlessly on the street, looking around with a pair of dead fish eyes that showed he hadn't woken up yet. Ah, this is a good place, you can eat noodles and watch horse racing, this is it. He walked forward and ordered a bowl of noodles. Just when he was still hesitating about what to order, the cells in his body suddenly became irritable. He looked back and his originally groggy head instantly became alert. Ah, I saw an incredible monkey. Chapter 30. In the afternoon in Tokyo, the city was noisy. The sound of car horns, police sirens, and street shouting formed a noisy noise. In front of a ramen shop, 2 burly men just stared at each other motionlessly, which looked a little weird. Ah, I saw an incredible monkey. Fushiguro Shigeki in the back was not annoyed after hearing this. He just touched his chin and looked at Igarashi Amanoha's face. After looking for a while, he said uncertainly, I remember 6 eyes are blue. Igarashi Amanoha smiled lightly as expected and said, it's not only 6 eyes that can see you from behind, Mr. Shigeki. Oh? Am I already so famous? Fushiguro said nonchalantly. Igarashi Tianyi gave the boss another portion of money, ordered another bowl of ramen, and walked into the house without looking back. I just care about you. After all, you are the only monkey in the world who can fight with me, so I am looking forward to it. Fushiguro Shiori looked at Igarashi Amanoha. It was the back of the flaw. He raised his mouth and smiled, then followed. Gentlemen, your ramen is ready. The staff at the door shouted to Igarashi Amanoha and Fushiguro Shijiro, who were sitting in the distance. Go get it. Igarashi Tianyi looked at the TV above his head and said to Fushiguro Shire without turning his head. Reason? I paid. That's a good reason. Fushiguro nodded in agreement and got up to get the ramen. After the noodles were brought, the two stopped talking and just ate noodles while watching TV. The room was very quiet, with only cheers coming from the TV and the sound of slurping noodles. After a while, the two put down their bowls and chopsticks, rubbed their stomachs at the same time, and exhaled. Are you interested in going out to digest your food? Fushiguro Shire asked with interest, leaning back in his chair. As expected, Igarashi Tianyi smiled and picked up a chopstick and threw it on a Tokyo map on the wall beside him. Don't make me wait too long. As soon as the voice fell, he turned into a residual image and disappeared on the spot. Fushiguro Shire was stunned, then he smiled, looked at the half of the chopsticks that were embedded in the wall, clicked his tongue and said, "Amazing speed." He raised his head and drank the last sip of coke. When he put down the can of drink, his figure disappeared into the house. Tokyo, in a park far away from the city. Boom! 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 Continuous sonic booms sounded in the air, and the hurricane swept across the entire park. The two men were like streams of light, constantly flashing in the air. Boom! The two figures fell down from the sky together, smashing two deep pits full of cracks on the ground. The dust was everywhere, and Fushiguro Shire stood in the smoke, stretching his arms and said, "Kid, your skills are quite interesting. Your body is the best. It is indeed the ultimate body." Igarashi. Tianyi walked out of a puff of smoke, gently patted the dust on his shoulders and said. The temperature around him began to rise rapidly. Igarashi Tianyi stretched out a hand to press his neck and moved it gently. Then he took a deep breath and exhaled a wisp of white smoke. Red, owl. Boom. Purple-white flames shot up into the sky, half of the winged mask covered his left face, and raging flames began to burn in many parts of his body. The appetizers are almost over, it's time to eat the main course. Igarashi Tianyi raised his head and said proudly to Fushiguro Shire. Yeah, I think so too, kid. Fushiguro Shiro spat out the ugly treasure from his mouth, took out the soul release sword from it, carried it on his shoulder and smiled at Igarashi Amano. The special grade curse tool soul release sword has the ability to ignore the hardness of all objects. Its record is that it split the special grade cursed red dragon of Geto Suguru in half with one sword. The two stared at each other's every move, and their leg muscles contracted at the same time. 1 gram whoosh. Bang. Bang. The two rushed towards each other at the same time. Shenner stuck the knife into the ground, twisted his body, and flew over and kicked sideways. Seeing this, Igarashi Tianyi supported himself with one hand and dodged with a waist. The two staggered their bodies. Shenner, who came behind Igarashi Tianyi, did not hesitate and swung the soul release sword to chop down. Igarashi Tianyi supported himself with one hand and exerted force on his waist. After turning in the air, he used a crane's beak hand to hook and block Shen's downward chop. Bang! Then his wrist ignited with flames and he suddenly raised it upward. Shock! Shock! Shen Er, who was holding the knife in one hand, was shocked and took a step back. Although he was shocked, he did not interrupt his rhythm. He quickly adjusted his state, holding the soul release knife in his hand, and rushed forward with a sweeping blow. Igarashi Tianyi flashed back and then attacked with a jab. Seeing this, Shen Er turned around and blocked the attack with one hand, then used a single knife to unload the force, turned around and kicked up. Bang! Igarashi Tianyi's eyes swept quickly, and the other hand raised to predict, and firmly grasped Shen Er's kick, then his body was boiling with flames, and he grabbed Shen Er's foot and turned around and threw it out directly, then he shook his hands downwards, and countless energy balls composed of flames shot out from his body and attacked Shenner. Shenner, who was thrown away, did not hesitate. He stretched out his other hand to his shoulder, took out Tian Ni Mao from Zhou Bao's mouth, and waved his arms rapidly, smashing all the countless energy balls that flew towards him. Igarashi Amaha flew forward, his arms were wrapped in flames, turning into two sharp blades, and his body spun rapidly, turning into a flaming halo, carrying a tremendous force, and smashed down fiercely. Seeing this, Fushiguro Shenner blocked with his two swords in front of his chest, and a terrifying countless sparks of the soul. The muscles of Shire's arms bulged, and he thrust his two swords forward, and then turned into a flash of light and disappeared on the spot. Whoosh! 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 Fushiguro Shire, who was jumping back and forth between the trees, had a serious expression on his face. This kid is very skilled in both physical strength and skills, and he seems to know my fighting style very well. Where did he get such complete information? It's really annoying to fight like this. It's the first time I've fought this kind of fight. It's really troublesome to know nothing about the enemy. Compared with Fushiguro Shire's dissatisfaction, Igarashi Amano is not much better, he is worthy of being a monkey. Oh my god, this kind of power. He looked at his slightly trembling hands and cursed in his heart, I'm so envious, with innate power, with a little training, he can easily kill a level 1 monster, a gifted monster, it's really troublesome. Fushiguro Shire looked at Igarashi Amano who was unharmed in front of him and narrowed his eyes, it took so much effort for a bowl of ramen, let's get rid of it quickly. Then he inserted the soul release sword back into Zhou Bao's mouth, and then he moved his wrist and threw Tian Ni Mao Kong from his left hand to his right hand, and his figure disappeared at the moment he grasped the handle of the sword. Are you serious about this, Igarashi? Tian Yi narrowed his eyes, moved his feet slightly, and disappeared in an instant. The two figures were like ghosts, constantly flashing in the woods, staring at each other, looking for flaws. Whoosh! Whoosh! Whoosh!